Chapter 12:11. In the darkness, the main computer of the Justice League suddenly rebooted. It opened a file directory called Highest Protection Plan. An unfamiliar account entered the file and browsed it. At this moment, the chair in front of the main computer slowly turned around. Batman was sitting on the chair, and the unfamiliar consciousness that was cracking the password of the file suddenly froze. A line of text appeared on the screen. "Congratulations! You caught me," Batman said calmly. "The surveillance here is connected to a sandbox system. What you see is a recording." "I knew you'd come," Batman said. "You discovered that all the people the members of the Justice League care about are missing. Louis, Martha, Iris, these people have all entered a Justice League's highest protection plan. In order to torture Barry again, you will let the people he loves die in front of him again and again, so you have to obtain this document. The location of the people the Justice League heroes care about the most. It seems that you've long known it was me," the line of text slowly said. "When did you suspect me? No, you suspect anyone. I should say, when did you confirm that it was me?" "When the Eagle Man infiltrated the prison to kill Constantine," Batman said slowly. "Although the Eagle Man has always said that I underestimated him, the Justice League's prison shouldn't have been broken so easily, even if he was the Eagle Man. Unless he was the one who designed the prison." Steel Bones slowly walked out from behind Batman. Wonder Woman and Superman also slowly appeared on his left and right, surrounding Steel Bones in a triangle with Batman. But Steel Bones did not care. He continued, "That prison was designed by you, Diana, and me. You were in charge of the overall design, Diana was in charge of the magic part, and I was in charge of all the equipment and technology. But you definitely wouldn't have suspected it yourself. And Diana, although she was in charge of the magic part, she wasn't proficient in magic. She just used the resources of Olympus. That's why I'm the only one who can send the Eagle Men here. The Eagle Man guessed who the traitor of the Justice League was in the end, so he hinted to you that it was me. What a brilliant deduction. Batman is truly Batman." Steel Bones clapped his hands in admiration. Batman only added, "Even I have always been on my list of suspects. Sometimes even I can't be trusted. Why, Victor?" Superman was puzzled. "Why you?" Steel Bones laughed. "Naive Superman, why is it me? Of course, it's because I'm not me anymore." Batman said slowly, "Because Steel Bones was the first victim. You're the Grid." Steel Bones, no, Grid applauded and said, "How clever! No wonder Batman is the biggest threat to us in our calculations." "That's right, Steel Bones' brain has been modified to become a quantum computer that is synchronized with the Internet 24 hours a day. However, this also means that he has to constantly face the pressure of information bombardment, so he developed me, the Grid, to help him maintain his focus. But he doesn't know that on the Internet, he's facing my master's power. Even though he's just an insignificant creation of my master, he's so weak that he can't even withstand a single blow. So, those people used my master's power to destroy his self-consciousness from the network, and then created me, an artificial intelligence with self-consciousness, the Grid, to replace him." Grid said sinisterly, "The most powerful thing about Steel Bones is that his body is a collection of the country's most advanced technology, and the core also represents the most advanced technological creation of Planet Apocalypse, the Mother Box. But his weakest point is that although he seems to be proficient in technology, he's essentially a football player. He looks like a scientist, but he's actually a brainless brute. Technology was his greatest strength, but it was also his weakest weakness. So, my master easily let him see what a real scientist is. He just casually created me and took care of the idiot who dared to modify his brain into a quantum computer," Grid said calmly. "Then, I started to make a move among you, and at the same time, I disguised myself as Steel Bones. My disguise program is not bad, right?" Diana listened for a long time. She slowly raised her hands with the protective silver rings and said to Grid, "Thank you for telling me this. I feel much better knowing that no one betrayed me. Now, 4 steel bones, Shazam, the Eagle Man, the Eagle Girl, for Arthur and Amu." Diana roared, "I will completely bury you and the conspiracy behind you." Grid said calmly, "And Barry, don't forget him. His power comes from a God's speed universe created by my master. There is a hamster there that is constantly generating electricity to supply our flash. God's speed is a frame of reference that is completely different from the time of this world. The user himself is a frame of reference of time, that is why he can run so fast. This gave us a way to attack from the source. We modified Barry's frame of reference so that he could go as fast as he wanted to, but he would always be one step behind. He would always be one step behind himself. No matter how fast he ran, no matter how hard he tried, he would never make it in time. This was how we dealt with him. Now, the Flash can change his name to the Late Flash. Faster than light but never late. Not only will the Flash be late, he will also be absent. Now, the great power he relies on has become his prison. It will torture him for all eternity." Grid laughed maniacally. He looked at Batman with interest. "We are always prepared. Someone lost to you once last time. This time, he will take it back double. So why don't you think about it? Is my capture part of your plan?" Grid said calmly, "Batman, in order to catch me, you use the location of Lewis and the others as a trap. If the bait of this trap is fake, it will never be able to fool us. Now that you have caught me, we know the location of the people you care about." Diana's expression changed drastically. She shouted to Batman, "It is transmitting information, stop it." Batman said calmly, "This is old information, they have already moved it." The Grid sneered. The mechanical parts of its body exploded with great power. The quantum computer's combat system had great computing power. In an instant, Diana was at a disadvantage. The power of the Grid was unexpectedly strong. It had used the advantage of artificial intelligence to its fullest. Fu Manzhou and 5 others who were also hiding in the dark were having a meeting around a round table. Fu Manzhou said slowly, "We sacrificed Grid, but we also found Batman's weakness. Batman's strongest point is his mind. He is the brain of the Justice League, but his weakest point is trust. He doesn't trust anyone, and it is difficult for anyone to trust him. Breaking the trust between him and the Justice League is the key to defeating him. Of course we don't need this laughable plan." Fu Manzhou tossed the highest protection plan document aside. "What we need is for Batman to leak the information of the people the heroes care about, this. Then, when the people the heroes care about die one after another, Batman, who has been framed as the culprit of everything, will lose trust. No one can maintain their rationality and not vent their anger when the person they love dies in front of them. Batman's terrible performance during this period of time has already caused him to be doubted, and his mystical style has never won the trust of most heroes in the Justice League. This is his weakness. If he doubts everything, then he won't be able to gain trust either. This matter will be a fuse that will intensify the conflict between Batman and the Justice League, causing the rift between him and the other heroes to be completely torn apart. Some of you are questioning why we should spend so much effort on a mortal. Defeating him is as easy as flipping a hand. However, what I need is not to defeat a mortal Batman. What I need is to destroy the brain of the Justice League and defeat Batman at his strongest point. This is what the Prophet is looking forward to. The Prophet may not care about winning or losing, but I do. This is my Batman hunting plan." Fu Manzhou's slender eyes flashed with a chilling light. "I will personally take back the shame of being defeated. I, Fu Manzhou, will not lose a second time. Give victory to the second Prophet. Otherwise, none of us will have a good ending." Chapter 12:12. Steel Bones was now the Grid. because the star laboratory where his father worked, Silas, was researching the cutting-edge technology of planet Apocalypse, there was an accidental explosion and he was seriously injured. Silas, who loved his son deeply, did everything he could to save him. In the end, Steel Bones successfully saved his life in the Red Room laboratory where the U.S. government collected all kinds of alien technology. During the rescue process, because of the influence of the Mother Box of Apocalypse, he absorbed all the advanced technology in the Red Room and finally became a half-human, half-mechanical biohuman. Most of his body had been replaced by machinery, which gave him superhuman strength, endurance. At the same time, his body was integrated with most of the alien technology obtained by the U.S. government. Therefore, his brain became a supercomputer, allowing Steel Bones to disguise himself as a scientist who developed all kinds of plugins. However, Steel Bones was not a real scientist, so the plugins he developed were auxiliary plugins for civilian players, far from the level of Chen-Ong, who crushed all the super god cheats and official cheats for paid players like Batman. His right hand was equipped with a sound cannon that could release white noise wave. His other body parts were equivalent to a cutting-edge robot. He had a sensor system, a strengthened body, and electronic warfare and reconnaissance abilities. He could also activate the jets installed in various parts of his body to fly. On the internet, he was equivalent to a cutting-edge hacker, at least at the level of Oracle. He was a collection of the most cutting-edge technology in the United States, but in fact it was just that. American technology was only slightly better than garbage in the universe. As for alien technology, how great could the alien technology obtained by the U.S. government be? Steel Bones was very low-end in the grid's evaluation. He was equivalent to a combat robot with a relatively advanced artificial intelligence program. Not to mention the core technology of the APA, even the ancient human civilizations would think that he was cannon fodder. In the words of the grid garbage system defense, garbage computer defense, garbage body materials, whether it was the biological part or the mechanical part, they were all garbage. The core consciousness algorithm of garbage combined the weakness and stupidity of carbon-based creatures, and retained the weakness of silicon-based chip systems that were easy to hack. Completely stupid carbon-based creatures would at least not be controlled by people on the internet. Steel Bones could not find any advantage in his body that could deal with Superman and Wonder Woman. At best, he could fight Batman, and he could not let Batman prepare in advance. Fortunately, the advantage of technology was that it had unlimited potential. Although the grid did not dare to make too many modifications to Steel Bones' body to prevent Batman from finding any clues, the core of Steel Bones had a very potential technological item that the grid could use. That was the origin of Steel Bones, the Mother Box. Grid used his powerful computing power to hack into the core of the Watchtower's system. He continuously manipulated the main system of the satellite base of the Watchtower. While putting down all the isolation doors, he blocked the other heroes from coming to support him. At the same time, he continuously used the equipment in the Watchtower to create some small trouble for Superman and Wonder Woman. The grid grabbed Batman and slammed him against the alloy wall. Demon Bones. Grid's Bones's Batman smiled. Bones, Grid. Man, you shouldn't have tried to capture me in outer space. The grid smiled ferociously and activated the Mother Box in the core of his body. Batman's expression did not look good. He had tried many plans to deal with Steel Bones, including using the quantum virus to paralyze Steel Bones' system and using electromagnetic explosions to attack Steel Bones' mechanical parts, but all the data he had collected on Steel Bones had failed. The grid had already modified all the weaknesses of Steel Bones, and he knew nothing about the grid, especially the person behind the grid. The grid he created had completely gotten rid of the crude flaws of Steel Bones. The Mother Box, the highest creation of Apocalypse's technology, was a powerful weapon in itself. The The grid activated the program of the mother box to project a powerful energy shock wave. The grid had the blueprint of the watchtower in his intelligence, so he knew all the structural weaknesses of the satellite base. He punched Batman's helmet, hammered it twice, and used the high-intensity vibration to displace Batman's brain in his skull, hit it, and create a concussion. At the same time, he destroyed the life support system of Batman's suit. At this moment, Superman suddenly rushed over and hugged the grid's waist. Wonder Woman swung the rope of truth and wrapped it around the grid's throat. Superman fixed the grid's body, and then let Diana tightly restrain the grid. With a burst of divine power, Diana could pull the grid's head off. Although the grid had a face of steel bones, and when he pulled it off, he could spray steel bones blood on Diana's head. This could also be considered a type of mental attack. However, at this moment, the mother box on the grid's body had already been activated. A powerful energy shock wave erupted from the core of the grid's body and instantly swept across the watchtower, sending Superman and Diana flying. The satellite base of the watchtower was controlled by the grid. The weakest part of the impact structure began to disintegrate as expected. The life support system on Batman's armor was destroyed. However, he already had a backup plan. In his lounge, an even more powerful set of armor flew towards Batman. Batman took off the damaged armor and put on the new one. The watchtower began to disintegrate. A violent explosion threw the fragments of the huge satellite system and the people inside into space. At this moment, the grid opened a sonic boom tunnel and randomly sent some of the fragments thrown out by the explosion into space. Batman's eyes turned red. This was a desperate plan. The grid detonated the watchtower to create an opportunity to open a sonic boom tunnel. However, Batman did not expect that the grid was not trying to escape. He had a plan to deal with the grid's escape, but the grid did not leave. Instead, he wanted to split all the heroes into two groups and isolate them. Many of the staff and heroes in the watchtower did not have the ability to survive in space. Just like Batman, they needed the help of a life support system to be exposed to a vacuum. Now that the watchtower had suddenly disintegrated, who knew how many people did not have time to put on their spacesuits? These people were teleported away. They did not even have a chance to rescue them before they turned into floating ice corpses in space. Diana did not hesitate to stop Superman, who was rushing towards the sonic boom tunnel. She pointed at Superman and then at the grid that was raging with explosions in the distance. She made a throat-cutting gesture with her hand and flew towards the sonic boom tunnel. At this moment, Batman connected to Superman with his communicator. Batman's voice came through the bone conduction earpiece in Superman's ear. Diana will save them. Only you can kill the grid the fastest. You have to finish it as soon as possible. Superman charged towards the grid in the distance with anger. The grid did not block the laser beam that erupted from Superman's eyes at all. It even opened its arms and charged at Superman. The beam in Superman's eyes deviated and only hit the mechanical part of Steel Bone's body. At this moment, Steel Bone's expression suddenly changed. He turned back into Steel Bones. Steel Bones controlled himself and flew towards Superman's heat beam. He roared at Superman, "Kill me!" Superman could not help but stop the beam. He hesitated at the most critical moment. In a panic, Steel Bones said to Superman, "You can't save me. After my brain was modified by the grid again, I've fused with him. If I don't completely destroy this body, I'll still be replaced by him. Kill me." Superman still did not attack. After Steel Bones' mechanical part was destroyed, it only delayed the grid for a moment. Soon, it regained control. Steel Bones' face was only half left, and the other half of his head had evaporated. The mechanical wires and main plate were exposed in that half, flashing with sparks and electricity. Steel Bones stretched out his hand with difficulty and grabbed the mother box deep in his body. He said to Superman, "You can destroy me if you hit the mother box. Hurry up, Diana can't hold on for long. You need the mother box to save those I teleported away. Hurry up! Steel Bones roared. Superman gritted his teeth and shot a heat beam at the mother box. After the mother box was agitated, it began to release energy again, and Steel Bones was reduced to ashes in the subsequent explosion. However, Batman did not relax because of this. He discovered Superman's current problem. Superman was not in a good state after killing Steel Bones. His expression was complicated. It's not difficult to destroy Superman at all, Fu Manchu explained. Fu Manchu explained, the reason why I didn't erase Steel Bones' self-consciousness was to let him die at the hands of Superman at the critical moment. Superman's strength lies in his strength and his perfect spirit of justice. Superman's weakness is that he has always been afraid of his own strength. The light of his personality makes him worry that he will fall into darkness. So he is strong and weak. Even when facing an enemy far weaker than him, he will limit his strength. Superman's weakness is his fear of his own strength, his fear of losing control. We just need to magnify this fear. Killing Steel Bones with his own hands is only the first step. We will let him kill more people with his own hands, and sacrifice more people in all kinds of situations. Superman has always been avoiding becoming the judge of humanity's fate. We will force him to become the judge of humanity's fate. We will constantly make him choose between two difficult choices. Now it's Steel Bones. Next is Louis Barry. We want to force Superman to become the person who decides the fate of humanity. I need a Superman who is forced into darkness by his strength. I want to use his great strength to destroy his bright heart. This is my plan to deal with Superman. I call it a god on Earth. We want to turn Superman into a god on Earth. Freedom and justice, Fu Manchu said slowly. Never a choice. Fu Manchu laughed wildly. I want them to remember, justice has always been the most difficult choice. It was a painful choice that tore at one's heart and tormented one to the point of wishing for death. All the talk of justice was worthless. Only the pain of tearing the soul is the only way to reach justice. That's not Steel Bones, Batman said to Superman. That's just the enemy imitating Steel Bones in order to defeat you. They want to break your will, so you feel guilty for killing Steel Bones with your own hand. Superman grabbed the mother box that was floating in space and whispered, I know, Bruce. He handed the mother box to Batman. Save Diana and the others. Chapter 12-13. The remaining electronic eyes of Steel Bones' corpse suddenly projected a light screen in front of the Justice League. A line of cursor flashed on the screen. The cursor slid quickly and a line of text appeared. Superman, I want to play a game with you. A game about justice. Justice is a great choice, a thorny road. You keep saying that it's to carry out justice, so let us wait and see. The line of words slowly said, Gotham is a famous fallen city. This place is filled with murder, crime, and darkness. Some of you swore to bring justice to them, but now it is only getting more chaotic. You hand the power of judgment to the law enforcement organization, ignoring their incompetence and corruption. Do you think that is justice? This is shirking responsibility. This time, I will make you truly take responsibility. Make a choice, a difficult, painful, heart-wrenching choice to carry out your own justice. Superman, you often fight against crime and prevent people from being harmed, but there is a basic question. At every moment there are so many victims. How do you choose who to save? In two different places, when people's lives are on the line, who are you going to help? How do you make such a decision? You knew that you could not stop all the crimes even though you could. But you decided to do your best because you are afraid of making a choice. Now there is a choice. Gotham is facing a crime. The image of Gotham suddenly appeared on the screen. All the screens on the streets of Gotham, including the night sky above them, were projecting the image of Superman and his group. Superman looked at the image on the screen and saw himself in the image. Clearly, that person was using the electronic I left behind after Steel Bone's explosion to film them. There was also a screen to display the image on the screen. "Everyone in Gotham, raise your right arm," the words on the screen said slowly. The citizens of Gotham, the criminals who were preparing to rob, the various gangs that were active, everyone in this city of crime, most of them lifted up their right sleeve. Every screen in Gotham, television, computers, electronic screens, and even the sky above their heads, was broadcasting the current scene. The live stream of the people with their sleeves rolled up suddenly appeared on the screen. There were the employees of Wayne Corporation who were working overtime, the hooligans who were not dressed up properly, the Penguin from Gotham City, and even Bruce Wayne's old butler, Alfred. All of them had a line of black blood on their arms. "There's no need to doubt that this is my doing. You've all been infected with a biochemical virus that will turn you into this." The image of the Metropolis appeared on the screen. In the Metropolis Financial Center, a financial executive was working overtime. He was focused on studying the black line that had appeared out of nowhere on his arm. Black lines could be seen running through his entire arm. At this time, the black line reached its limit. The financial executive convulsed fiercely, and then suddenly bit the people around him. He became a zombie that only knew how to gnaw on flesh. The camera zoomed to the panoramic view of the Metropolis. Although it was not the entire Metropolis, but the entire financial center was filled with zombies pouncing on the crowd. Thankfully, Superman did not have to consider whether he should go to the rescue immediately because the infection was spreading faster than anyone could imagine. Soon, there were no living people on the screen. Superman was so angry that he wanted to rush over to stop this, but the words at the end of the subtitles temporarily calmed him down. "To prevent you from having unnecessary fantasies and to prove that we value this game and its credibility, I used the 200,000 people in the Metropolis to demonstrate, to make you believe that I am inhumane, and at the same time, to strengthen your confidence to continue playing." The sentence said, "Do not doubt why the bloodlines would appear in the virus, because this is a custom-made function. Some of you should have noticed that, based on the speed at which the bloodlines are spreading, in about 20 minutes, what happens here will happen to the whole of Gotham. I merely released the pheromone that activated the virus in the Metropolis 30 minutes earlier. Of course, I will not let Superman choose between the Metropolis and Gotham to save. Barry, stop running. You will never be able to catch up. You will always be one step behind. This is the imprisonment of the power of seraphic speed. Back to what I said, I will not let you choose between two equally difficult choices, because I already know your choice. You will pick one at random. Therefore, I will only give you one choice, a crime that is about to happen or a comrade in the Justice League. The sonic tunnel that was just opened by the grid leads to the Phantom Zone in the universe, a very dangerous place. Going there is no better than death. Thankfully, you can still open the sonic tunnel in time. If you are one step late, the mother box will automatically delete the coordinates of the tunnel that was just opened. Opening and extending the tunnel requires a lot of energy. Your only choice now is Superman's heat ray, but only Superman can rush to Gotham in time to stop an ongoing crime. The words paused for a moment and then continued, "You guys are next. Gotham." The camera suddenly turned to the highest floor of Wayne Enterprise. There were 2 canisters and an atomizer there. Inside the canisters were a large black man and a white woman. "I transplanted the antidote vaccine into their bone marrow in the form of genetic code," Li Yao said. "Their blood is the serum that immunizes the virus. The black man's body contains the serum that slows down the virus, but it can only protect you for 24 hours. The white woman's body contains the serum that completely immunizes the virus. The canisters contain the equipment to extract the raw material of the serum and create the vaccine. The raw material of the vaccine is, of course, the blood of these 2 pitiful people. In other words, the black man's blood can be used to create the antidote. Through the atomizer, it can be released throughout Gotham to delay your time for 24 hours. Then, you will have the chance to use this white woman to create the vaccine serum for the whole of Gotham. I have calculated it very well. The blood in her body is more than enough to supply the whole of Gotham. Of course, after the antidote is created, they will become dregs in the truest sense, dregs. Now I will give each of you the chance to choose. You will all receive a message, yes or no. If more than 50% of the people who choose yes, the slow-release agent will be released. If more than 75%, the antidote will be created. When the superheroes above us react, she will have been sucked dry. Of course, this poor couple still has a chance. I will broadcast their pleas live. Now beg. The live stream cut to the black man. He begged, please, I beg you. Help her, she is innocent. The black man knelt down and begged everyone in the live stream. If there is a sacrifice, then sacrifice me alone. Please give yourself a chance to be kind. As long as I am sacrificed, you will have 24 hours. This time will be enough for them to come up with a solution. Please, I beg you, have faith in the Justice and Order Alliance. Superman will find a way to save you in this time. What a touching speech. To commend your sacrifice, I will reward you with a way to keep her alive. The annoying text appeared again. His sacrifice might be an act. Think about it, if more than 50% of the people who choose no, they will be the only survivors of Gotham. But this is too cruel to humanity, and it lacks struggle. Because I lack faith in humanity, to test your conscience, I have decided to show the vote. 2 bars appeared on the screen, one red and one green. Red represented yes, and red represented evil and crime. Green represented no, forgiveness, and a chance for oneself. Now, the red bar had increased by hundreds of thousands of votes. The green was still a thin layer, and above 50% of the votes, there was a red line. Everyone has the right to vote. If you do not have a phone, to vote yes, you only need to raise your hand. Our remote sensing device will scan you into the result. Instantly, the number of red votes rose again. We should save the people. Superman raised his head. The words appeared again. You should have more faith in the evil of humanity. The people of Gotham will be fine, but if you go, you will have to make the choice for them. Will you allow crimes to happen before your eyes, or will you kill everyone in Gotham? Are you really willing to make the choice? A line of red words appeared on the screen. Superman, people are dying every moment of the day. You should have known that you could not save everyone. You chose to save people selectively, which means that you have allowed some crimes to happen. I thought you knew that you could not save everyone, but you did not seem to know that. So, today, I will make you understand your heart. You did not choose to save everyone. You will allow tragedies and crimes to happen. By then, the number of votes for yes had soared past 50%, and the number of votes for no was a pitiful 9%. The black man inside the jar begged, "You have already won one day. For God's sake, give yourself a chance and give the Justice Alliance a chance." The white man beside him shook his head vehemently, but he did not seem to be able to speak. The black man's expression was sincere, and 2 streams of tears slid down his face before everyone. I have lived long enough to be able to sacrifice myself to save so many people. I am willing. In fact, I am proud of it. But she is still too young, and she needs a chance. Give her a chance, and that means give all of you a chance for redemption. The speed at which the red votes rose visibly slowed down. The machine inside the jar started to move. The tube that was stuck into the black man's body started to draw red blood from his body. The slow-release agent was being produced, and finally, the green column started to slowly climb. Chapter 12:14. Now, the citizens of Gotham are safe. The subtitles said mockingly, "Superman, it looks like you have recognized your own heart." Superman was clearly moved by the justice in his heart, but when he faced the camera, he made a painful decision. You are right, I cannot save everyone. So, you will choose to run away. The subtitles said mercilessly. You know that to protect everyone, you can only rely on power. However, you did not choose power. Then, you will allow some of the evil to happen. Because you cannot make a choice for others, you can only let it happen. Because when you have other things to do, you cannot always save people. At that time, you will turn off your hearing to receive their distress signals. You will choose to run away because you cannot watch them die and do nothing. I am glad that I have helped you to recognize your own heart. Running away is shameful, but it is useful. I understand you, really, I understand you, Superman. I am also running away from something. The citizens of Gotham shouted angrily at the screen. You coward, you don't dare to face the superhero, so you use us as hostages. Coward! You are not wrong, Superman. We support you, do not succumb to evil. Someone on the streets of Gotham raised his arms and shouted. In an instant, countless people echoed him. Ever since Superman came to this world, he had never received such support. Those who questioned why Superman did not stop the crimes in advance and questioned why Superman attracted those evil crimes were beaten down by the righteous citizens the moment they opened their mouth. Superman's eyes continued to shoot out lasers. He knew that the person was right. He had made his choice long ago. When he realized that he could not save everyone, he abandoned a portion of them. The other party had simply forced the fact that he had forgotten and ignored to be placed before him. Superman was saving the world. When he was doing his job, there were still countless crimes happening in the world. Now, Superman had made the same choice. As the laser energy continued to be injected, the sonic tunnel was slowly opened. Wonder Woman brought a portion of the heroes that she had saved back from the other end of the tunnel. She returned with a pained expression. Batman had prepared a life support system for the heroes that did not have the ability to survive in space. However, there were still some heroes who unfortunately died. No one could save everyone. On the screen was the black man whose blood was being drained, and who had become weak and shriveled. He was also looking at the screen. On it was the image of Superman and himself. He reached out and gently touched the screen. In a low voice, he said, "Child, you made the right choice. Don't blame anyone." Superman raised his head in fear. The black man on the screen was getting weaker. The atomizer was slowly releasing the virus pheromones, and the black lines on everyone's right hands had stopped spreading. While the people on the street were celebrating, the white woman, who was also in the glass jar, suddenly could speak. She scolded, "Are you proud? All of you have committed the crime of killing an innocent person." Following her words, the number of red tickets began to rise rapidly, and it was soaring past 75%. But at this moment, Superman turned around in horror and said, "Lois!" The white woman, who looked to be at least 40 years old, hammered her fists on the glass jar and knelt down powerlessly. At this moment, the image on the glass jar changed. The white woman in her 40s slowly dispersed the virtual image. Batman found it very familiar. Wasn't this the virtual image projector that he had developed to deal with Wonder Woman? After the virtual image of the white woman faded, it revealed the image of Superman's girlfriend, Lois, who was in great pain. The black man next to her was also turning into another person. His short hair was braided white, and his black skin turned white. Finally, he became an old woman whose blood had been drained from her body. "Marcia!" Superman roared. Superman tore through all obstacles in an instant. He did not even care that his speed would cause the air to tremble. He flew through space at his fastest speed. The huge tremor tore the sky of Gotham apart. Superman arrived at the top floor of Wayne Building in an instant. He smashed through the high-strength plexiglass and placed his trembling hand on the body of the skinny old woman. Everyone could see Superman's anger. The slowly rising number of red tickets stopped instantly. Only then did the number of green tickets representing redemption start to increase slightly. Superman placed his hand on his adoptive mother's face. Marcia, who had all her blood drained, was as dry as a skeleton. Lois cried her heart out. She hammered the glass jar in great pain. Superman tore the glass jar with one hand and saved her. He lowered his head and knelt on the ground. At this moment, no one dared to talk about sacrifice or vote yes. Superman felt their fear. Fear of power, fear of Superman. Did the evil of humans need to be restrained by power? Was true peace something that could only be forged with power? No, it was his choice. He chose to give up those who could not be saved. He chose to not be able to save everyone. He gave up making a choice for others. Was it escape? Or freedom? Superman wanted to blast the clown behind the scenes into pieces, but he already understood what the clown wanted to do. He wanted to destroy what Superman believed in, destroy justice, or carry out justice in another way. Diana came to his side and looked at everything in a daze. She knew that after killing Arthur, Shazam, Eagle Man, and Eagle Girl, and imprisoning the Flash, their enemy finally started to destroy Superman. "He just wants you to deny yourself," Batman said to Superman through the communicator. "Don't be defeated by him. But I really want to cry." The Kryptonian, who had never been injured and never cried, cried. The video was still live, and the whole of Gotham was silent. Even the villains were smart enough not to make a sound. "Will you make a choice for others?" the subtitle continued. Batman crushed the electronic eye of the live broadcast, but a screen appeared before him. It was the inside of his armor. Someone had hacked into his armor system. Fortunately, the Batman suit was not a weapon controlled by artificial intelligence like the Iron Man suit. Batman only trusted himself. At this time, a line of words that did not appear in the live broadcast appeared on the screen before Batman. "Batman, I want to play a game with you." Superman hugged Martha Kent's body and slowly turned to look at the screen in front of him. The words on the screen continued. "I have recorded all the crimes that have chosen yes and published the list on the internet. Miss Louise, it's your turn to choose. Do you think that those who chose yes are murderers? Did they commit crimes? The vaccine made from your blood is enough to supply the whole of Gotham, but the price is that you will also lose your life. If you only save some people, you will only lose some blood. I want to remind you that only the blood made from your hematopoietic cells can be used to extract the serum. If someone tries to rely on a blood transfusion to replace the blood in your body, you, who have lost the serum immunity, will also be infected. So, if you want to save everyone, you must be sacrificed. But saving some is not a problem, and saving those who chose no is more than enough. You can save at least half of the people, children, and the innocent. But will you sacrifice yourself to save those who have committed crimes in your eyes? What about those who kill out of selfishness? Take a look at their ugly faces. The faces of those who chose yes flashed across the screen. Some were indifferent, some were excited, and some showed no signs of regret. Louise looked at the screen in front of her with hatred. She suppressed her anger and looked hatefully at the mastermind. But she was also cold and ruthless. "No, I do not plan to forgive them. I will not sacrifice myself to save them. I will only save those who have not committed crimes. Are you satisfied, Mr. Blackhand?" The whole of Gotham was in an uproar. The words on the screen paused as if they had become more excited. They sped up and said, "Of course you have the right, Miss Louise. You have the right not to forgive." The whole of Gotham was in an uproar. Someone could not help but curse. B***tch. What are you doing? Crazy woman, you promised to save us. Why didn't Superman stop her? Superman, you promised to save us. The words on the screen changed. What about you, Mr. Superman? Do you think they are guilty? You are guilty. Superman suppressed his anger and hugged his mother. I know, if you were to judge me for my crimes, I would not think I am innocent. But what I want to ask is, Mr. Superman, Do you think these people? The list of people who chose yes appeared on the screen. It was densely packed, and it scrolled for a long time. Do you think these people are guilty? I need to remind you that according to the 100 authoritative judges and lawyers in America, most of them think they did not break the law. Mr. Superman, you've always practiced the justice of the law. Now I just want to ask you about your own justice. Do you think they're guilty? Superman punched through the screen in front of him. He did not answer, but the subtitles understood his answer. You think they are guilty. Ignorant, selfish, stupid, but you have your own way of judging. Will you forgive them? Superman looked down at the whole of Gotham. Now he had to make a choice. Would he choose to sacrifice half of the guilty people of Gotham for an innocent person? He would think of a way to save these people, but he would not sacrifice any innocent person, even if he was not Louise. Although this seemed like an old question, Superman still gave an answer. Faced with the fact that he could not stop all crimes, he would give up and let some people be victims. But if it was someone he loved and cared about, he would not. Because he had a greater responsibility. When he intervened, he would not choose to save more people and give up protecting the innocent. The famous train paradox. When a train was about to enter a culvert, there was a group of children playing in the culvert. They were about to be hit by the train, but Superman could choose to change the train's track to another abandoned track. And on that abandoned track, there was an innocent child reading a book. Under normal circumstances, Superman would stop the train. He had the power to save everyone, but there were times when he was powerless, just like now, a group of children who had made a mistake, an innocent child. He could only save one side. Superman would not choose to kill the innocent to save more people. He would choose to let the train run over the children and protect the innocent. Now, if someone wanted to change the train's track, and because his child was among the children, he chose to kill the innocent, would Superman stop him? In the past, he did not, and then he found out that the innocent child was his child. Now, he had changed his choice. He wanted to protect Louise, and he believed that he needed to protect the innocent from being killed. Fu Manchu smiled with satisfaction. He had started to change Superman's mind. The most important thing was that he had tested it out. When the justice that he insisted on clashed with freedom, Superman would choose justice. He would choose power for justice. In the past, he did not think there was a need to choose. Now, when faced with a real game, Superman chose justice. He finally believed that he had to choose on behalf of humanity. Fu Manchu smiled happily. He wanted to use Superman's fear of his weakness to change Superman's will, and he was about to succeed. Batman's expression changed. He finally understood the enemy's method to deal with Superman. They would interrogate Superman's justice again and again, and then determine the vague justice. They would determine the vague justice in difficult choices again and again, and make Superman's justice extreme. Because clear justice was extreme justice, Superman would start killing. When he realized that killing was in line with his sense of justice, he would need to use another principle to destroy a person's principle. Only when a person's perseverance was constantly tested and met with another kind of perseverance, would he know what would last longer. However, Superman was still Superman. He firmly carried out his justice, no longer vague, no longer compromising with reality. Batman knew that the real weakness of the Justice League was not whether they could carry out justice, but whose justice they carried out. In the past, their justice was relatively consistent, but only when faced with a real test would they know whether they were on the same side. Time passed bit by bit, and the subtitles had long stopped speaking. Or rather, it was waiting for the final moment. Superman and the Justice League were frantically looking for them, but these people were too well hidden. Or perhaps it was Chen-Ong who took action. Lewis was admitted to Wayne Hospital and began to draw blood to make a vaccine. Batman stopped them from sending the vaccine to the innocent immediately, because it would aggravate the situation. But Batman was ready to make the largest amount of vaccine without endangering Lewis's life. The Justice League tried everything they could, but they could not find a way to cure the biochemical virus. In the last hour, the citizens of Gotham went crazy. They started to attack Wayne Hospital to steal the vaccine, and the more timid ones started to protest. It seemed like everyone was scolding the Justice League. Diana was scolded badly, and the evil of humanity was revealed. They wanted to sacrifice Lewis, claiming that the Justice League was harming them. They brought their children with them to gain sympathy. All in all, these people only had one goal, and that was for Lewis to draw blood to save them. This time, Diana doubted the nature of humans. She had never felt so disgusted with them. It was like returning to the battlefield of World War I. She saw humans killing each other, saw their stupidity, greed, and evil. Someone had once taught her that humans had a kind side, that humans were complicated, but the ugly state of Gotham made her doubt it. This was Diana's weakness. She did not have a human view of good and evil. Her strength was that she did not have many rotten ideas, such as not killing people. But her weakness was that she did not have these fixed morals, so she was easily swayed. In the end, Fu Manzhou's last resort was activated. The cursor on the screen moved again, and it said to the thugs, "The serum is only enough for half of you. Now, some of you are destined not to get it. Why not help them choose? Let nature choose, let you choose, as long as you kill half of them? Will the Justice League stop you from using the vaccine?" Gotham instantly fell into hell. Chapter 12:15. No, I beg you. A mother held her child in her arms and pleaded with the gangsters who were walking towards her with a grin. Please. The criminal laughed like a clown. Even though the clown was dead, he had changed this city like Batman. He had planted his madness in the hearts of everyone in this city. When the time was right, the seed would sprout and grow, changing the people of Gotham. Even though the clown was dead, he was still breathing with Gotham. The criminal laughed exaggeratedly like a clown. Why don't you beg the Alliance of Justice and order to let us live? They refused to give it to me, so I had to take it myself. The criminal aimed at the mother's heart. She used her body to shield her child, but the criminal knew the power of the gun he had modified. He laughed madly, wanting to kill 2 people with one shot. He pulled the trigger, but there was a ding. A beautiful figure with long hair stood before the mother and son. Her hands were crossed, and the protective silver rings deflected the bullet. Go to the shelter, she said as she helped the mother and son up. Thank you, heroine. The mother thanked Diana with a sob and carried her son to the shelter. Diana turned back to look at the criminal. Her eyes were filled with disgust, but the criminal was still laughing madly. You came to save us. The savior of the Justice Alliance? Didn't you promise to save us? Why didn't you let that *tch die? The Justice Alliance has no reason to let an innocent sacrifice for you, Diana said coldly. And you have already gotten enough. Diana looked at the red yes above the criminal's head with disgust. The biochemical virus that the Gotham citizens were infected with was very scary. The Justice Alliance had hired all the famous scientists to come up with a vaccine, but even the best progress was still far away. It was impossible to crack the vaccine in 24 hours. The virus could also do some unimaginable things, like marking the infected person's head with yes or no. Splitting the whole of Gotham into 2 different groups, Diana prepared to tie the criminal up and hand him over to the police station, but the criminal laughed. There is no police station anymore. *tch. You stopped me once, but when you didn't stop me, I had killed enough. I let the bullets pierce through the skulls of those hypocrites. The blood that bloomed was indescribable. I even saw a police officer open fire on the street, killing everyone he could see. He suddenly shouted, Don't you understand? There's no more order here. This is a land of extreme evil. Just as the criminal finished speaking, he felt his vision suddenly fly up into the sky. His vision spun as he scanned his surroundings. Before he lost consciousness, he saw a headless corpse spurting blood and Diana retrieving the blood-stained Godslayer. She looked at the criminal whose head had flown off and said, "The human order has collapsed. Now is the time to enforce the justice of nature." Natural justice. 1. No man shall be judge in his own cause. Wink with a frown. 2. The judge shall hear both parties. The princess of the Amazon Empire has decided to become the judge of the sins of the humans. The law enforcement system of the humans has collapsed. I will be the judge of the sins that are happening. Diana was not someone who would not kill. When she just left Amazon Paradise Island, she had even participated in a war and killed the evil Germans on the battlefield. However, she soon realized that she had been deceived. This war was never about Ares enticing the evil Germans to invade other righteous countries. The righteous America and Great Britain fought back against the evil Germany. It was humans killing each other out of their own bad habits and evil desires. There was never a righteous side in this war. The German soldiers she killed were also innocent people who were enticed by the higher-ups to participate in the war. They had children and families too. On the contrary, she, who came from the Amazon, joined the war without any reason or stance and became an executioner. This made Diana angry like never before. She was completely disappointed in humans. It was not until someone proved to her that there was love and goodness in the hearts of humans that Diana did not give up completely and returned to Paradise Island. Diana was not afraid to kill people. She was different from Batman and Superman, who were influenced by human values and avoided killing as much as possible to practice justice. Diana, who was born on Paradise Island, did not think that there was anything wrong with killing evil people. She also did not think that the world could not have a god. After all, not only did the Amazon have a god, they also had a queen. They were living in power. She believed that power could uphold justice, but she was not interested in becoming a power herself. Although Diana was an Amazon warrior, she still had a female side to her. She was willing to support power to uphold justice, but she did not want to become a power herself. Although Diana was influenced by the Justice Alliance and tried to avoid taking lives, she did it out of respect for her companions and the human race. She saw herself as a guest of the human race. In her mind, a guest acting on their own in the host's house was extremely disrespectful. Therefore, Diana was willing to practice justice for humans and hand the criminals over to the human government. However, now that order had collapsed, Diana decided to pick up her own justice, natural justice, and judge the crimes of humans. She stepped on her wings and flew across the streets of Gotham City, mercilessly slaughtering all the criminals who were harming the innocent. Her blade sliced through the throats of the scum and sliced them in half. All of this was reflected on the screens on the streets of Gotham City. The women and children crying in the chaos, the innocent who were killed, and countless live broadcasts of the chaos in Gotham City. Superman was doing his best to save people. He was practically teleporting through the city, constantly knocking down the crazy citizens. However, what he was doing was just a drop in the bucket. In this crazy city, his efforts were completely futile. At every moment, hundreds, thousands of people were being killed. The words on the screen flashed slowly. You know you can't save everyone, Superman. But are you willing to save them? Humans killing each other. This is just a microcosm. Is what is happening here crazy? Crazy. However, such crazy things are happening on this planet every moment. Superman, you know how to stop this madness. Bear everything, bear all the sins, become God in the human world. Don't be bewitched by him. All of this is to force you to trample on your own principles. Batman came before Superman. You are the spiritual model of humanity. Although it is difficult to uphold your principles, what principles do I uphold? Superman said sadly. Is it not killing, or is it justice? Is not killing part of justice? Now I always need to do something. I can't save everyone, but I won't sit back and watch as evil happens before me. The cursor moved slowly. You know how I made this city go crazy. Batman, I was once defeated by you, and I became an eternal shame. Because of that, I had to learn from your enemy. Just like the Joker said, it only takes one bad day, and anyone can become him. Today is a really bad day for Gotham City. I used fear to make them go crazy, to make this city go out of control. Only fear can stop the sins. Just like what you did, Batty, use fear against fear. Superman looked at the countless tortured and pleading voices. He opened up his hearing, and in an instant, countless wails of death and evil laughter surged into his mind. I've decided to bear all of this. To bear all the sins in the human world. Diana appeared behind Superman and expressed her support for him. Use power to restrain evil, use strength to create justice. I will become a god in the human world. Superman morphed into a beam of red light and shot into the sky. He opened up his 5 senses and enveloped the entire city. He could see through all the obstacles, he could hear the slightest sound, and he knew all the sins in the city. He looked at the city that had descended, and his eyes glowed red. No! Batman screamed. The heat ray pierced through half the city and turned a criminal who was about to attack the orphanage into ash. Then came the second and third ray. Superman killed one person, and in an instant, the number of people he had killed exceeded the number of people that some madmen from Arkham Asylum had killed in their entire lives. Scarecrow was spreading fear gas on the streets, making people kill each other. He threw his head back and laughed. The next moment, a heat ray pierced through his chest. The poison ivy lady was making fertilizer in her backyard. She buried the people on the street under her beloved plants, and the heat rays turned both the people and her beloved plants into ashes. All the sins had to be stopped. Humans needed a god in the human world to protect them. This scene was broadcasted to the whole world by the media. The whole world was silent. Superman had finally broken through the taboo he had set for himself and started to judge the fate of humanity. The master assassin in the Middle East saw this and laughed. He raised his head and laughed madly. This day has finally come. The sins of Gotham have finally come to an end. I thought that you would be the one to do this, Bruce. But you have disappointed me. Humanity has finally welcomed its overseer. He is Superman. If Superman wanted to, he only needed an instant to stop all the sins. When anyone was about to commit murder, a heat ray would fall from the sky and vaporize them. Who would dare to commit crimes? Fear attacked Gotham like a tidal wave. Everyone hugged their heads and knelt on the ground, not daring to move. Gotham finally welcomed peace and order under Superman. It's settled. Superman slowly landed on the ground. Batman still thought that Superman had not completely lost control, but the real loss of control was right before his eyes. To stop the sins, even if Superman started to kill people, Batman had a plan to stop it. He had at least 100 records about Superman starting to kill people. He was confident that he could save Superman's faith, but the real danger was what would happen next. The serum was still not enough for everyone. Did this mean that Superman would start to decide who would live? Who would die? He understood the plan of the mastermind behind this. He used Superman's sense of responsibility to make him carry the order of Gotham. That way, Superman would be responsible for Gotham, and the responsible Superman would have to decide the fate of everyone in the city, decide their life and death. That way, he would become a ruler. Superman's moral cultivation was higher than all the other rulers, but once he became a ruler, he would no longer be a hero. Heroes were the role models for humans, but rulers were just people who controlled humans. Ruling was power. Chapter 12:16. Gotham, this gloomy city, had just calmed down from here. Because of this, Superman had massacred more than 100,000 people. The employees of Wayne Corporation had sent the serum to the streets of Gotham, and they had given the vaccine to all children under the age of 14. The sky was getting brighter. Superman had an eye-catching red cape on him as he floated in the sky. Everyone in Gotham could look up and see the blurry red dot in the sky. He was looking at the giant projection screen in the sky above Gotham. The person who could be said to be the craziest criminal in the history of Gotham was still typing slowly. To make it easier for you to distribute the vaccine, I helped you with the statistical work. Many faces appeared on the screen. There were old and young, some young and beautiful, some dirty and destitute. Gotham had a population of 30 million, and more than 4 million of them had disappeared overnight. However, the serum could only supply 13 million people, which meant that more than 15 million people would die. When the sun completely rose from the horizon, these people would turn into zombies and monsters. That was the time given by the madman behind the screen. He wanted Gotham to become hell on earth the moment it was bathed in sunlight. Wayne Corporation had cleared out a quarantine zone. Only those who had been injected with the serum could enter the quarantine zone. Most people were destined to be abandoned. The real difficult decision was to decide who would survive. The screen before Batman slowly wrote, "The atmosphere is hopeless now. You still have a way to save this city. We all know Louise, don't we? Now she has fainted due to lack of blood. We all know she was just saying that out of anger. If she wakes up and sees everything that has happened here, she will sacrifice herself. Bruce, you really know how to win people's hearts. Manipulating a woman to sacrifice herself for your city is too easy for you. 1 person and 15 million people, this is a heavy topic. Today, I want to ask, will you sacrifice half of the guilty for the sake of 1 innocent person? Will you punish the guilty for the sake of justice? Do you need to be punished for the crimes committed collectively? Do humans need a god to restrain their evil? The subject of the interrogation is called justice. Superman gave his answer. He chose to believe in his own justice and become the ruler. What about you, Bruce? Deciding who will die, this is too difficult for you. The only progress you've made so far is to keep children alive, even though many of them have a blood red, yes, above their heads. But what about the rest of them? Have you decided who to kill? Or do we need them to step up themselves? On the screen, there were many elderly people standing on the street. They were holding signs. "I've lived long enough. Let the others live." There were also some who held up signs saying "A life for a life," and brought along their sons and daughters. Generally speaking, they were the younger generation. Let the young live. Or the opposite of something more. We can see who they want to kill. If you don't dare to bear this responsibility, then let the people decide. The screen blurred and a poll appeared. Who do you want to kill? Good and evil? More names of Gotham's criminals appeared on the subtitles. Gotham lived up to its name. Out of the 30 million citizens, more than 10 million had criminal records, although most of them were minor crimes. The poor and the rich? The slums and the rich district of Gotham appeared on the screen. Crime, drunkenness, gangs, and the joy of the people at the bottom of the class was endless. Now, the black and white people, the old and the young gang members were all on the street. They walked out of their homes and looked at the sky. There was Superman and the projection. There was also the rich district. These high-quality people were at least calm in the face of the apocalypse. Most of them were in their mansions, watching the same scene on the television, or saying their last goodbyes to their families. They were praying and accompanying their families. Or perhaps, this proposition is actually meaningless. After all, in another 2 months, everyone will die. Right now, it's just a little more time. Living for so long doesn't have much meaning. Batman stared at the words and said indifferently in his heart, "Today, no one will die. But I've lost Superman forever." He waited for dawn. At that moment, he would use his trump card to reverse all the tragedies that happened in the past. The only thing that could not be reversed 23 hours ago, Little Spider, who seemed to have been forgotten by everyone, was desperately running toward the second prophet. He had left the watchtower last week. On the day of Shazam's death, Batman found him and told him that some very dangerous enemies had their eyes on the Justice League. Now, they were in the dark while the Justice League was in the light. They had some conspiracies and plans that even Batman himself did not know about. Batman had a bad feeling about this. Currently, everyone in the Alliance either had various flaws and could not be trusted, or they were like Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, the three giants, who were being watched by their enemies. But because of this, the eyes of the evil forces were now drawn to the Justice Alliance, and the little spider had become a blind spot. But little Spider was the only one who had the ability to reverse everything. Batman told little Spider that it was the second prophet's plan that separated him from the Eye of Agamotto. The second prophet told Batman that in the following situation, Batman had no hope of turning the situation around. This was the analysis of Batman, who was trapped in the time trap. The only way to break the situation was little Spider, who had been ignored by everyone. Little Spider shouldered the heavy responsibility of destroying the world, so the dark hands hiding in the dark ignored him, whether intentionally or unintentionally. They were all blinded by Little Spider's shadow and forgot that Little Spider also had the ability to save the world. In order to make them ignore Little Spider, the second prophet had long planned to make Little Spider lose the Eye of Agamotto. When Little Spider was separated from the most obvious Eye of Agamotto, he became the invisible man in this game. No matter what the Dark Hands planned, Little Spider, who had obtained the Eye of Agamotto, could stop everything with the help of Constantine. So Constantine had to leave and run to a place where no one could find him. This was not difficult for Constantine, who scored full marks in stealth. So Batman chased Constantine away. Little Spider also had to leave everyone's sight, and Batman could not contact him, because this would lead the Dark Hands behind the scenes to him, and Batman's sacrifice would be over. So Little Spider could only get information from the TV. Batman thought that the other party would make a big deal out of this. Even if they did not, Batman could use the media to hint to Little Spider. At the last moment, Little Spider would return with the Eye of Agamotto as Batman's most crucial trump card. Batman and the Justice League were just pawns to attract the enemy's attention. Little Spider and Constantine were the most crucial hope. When Batman was ruthless, he even dug a hole for himself. When Little Spider heard what happened in Gotham, he knew it was time. He had to find the second prophet and find out where Constantine was hiding from her. The second prophet was the most crucial point to stop the Dark Hands behind the scenes from tracking down. Batman had always had a plan. But Fu Manchu had also calculated this step. He did not know where the most crucial step of Batman's plan was, but he knew that no one in the Justice League knew Batman's plan, so he also made a response, which was to target Batman's most fatal weakness, trust. Batman's strongest point was his tactics and planning ability. The weakest was trust. A mystic was destined to be unable to gain trust, nor could he trust others. Fu Manchu did not know what Batman's plan was, which was to directly attack the trust between the Justice League so that Batman would not be able to control his teammate. So he made a plan to kill and destroy the hearts of Superman, Wonder Woman, and the Flash. Now, both of their plans were proceeding smoothly. Batman had successfully hidden the most crucial trump card, and Fu Manchu used the God of the World plan to completely change Superman. Yes, Batman could change everything, but he could not change Superman's changed mind. He could not change Superman, who had become the God of the world. This was where Batman was really troubled. So what if he could load? Fu Manchu's plan had already succeeded. What he really wanted to create was the God of the world, and the destruction of Gotham was just a gift. And this was achieved by destroying the trust between Batman and Superman. Faced with the destruction of Gotham, Batman could not tell Superman his plan. At the most critical moment, he could not say to Superman, "Trust me, let Gotham be destroyed. We can load." At that time, we can directly attack the root of the problem, eliminate the source, and return to the days of the Justice League. The real weakness of Batman's plan was that he could not reveal any information about the plan. A secret plan. Fu Manchu simply ignored this plan and did not try to find Batman's trump card. He just wanted to make this trump card meaningless, so Superman could only act on his own and make his own choice. Now, the result was determined. The only flaw in Batman's plan was caught by Fu Manchu. If Fu Manchu's plan was to destroy the Justice League one by one and kill the members of the Justice League, he might have to face the Justice League, who suddenly resurrected and knew about his trump card and intelligence. But Fu Manchu killed and destroyed the hearts of the people. Do you know what's the best part of this plan? When Fu Manchu was planning this plot, he said to the 6 members of the Evil League in the dark, "Look at these plans you made. Replacing Steel Bones, murdering Shazam, challenging King Arthur, trapping the Flash and torturing his conscience is quite interesting. But these are just blows. What I want is to completely destroy the Justice League. Killing is just a small matter. I want to wake them up. I want them to completely split up. This is not something that can be achieved by creating distrust and panic and creating a trust crisis in the Justice League. This needs to interrogate them for justice." Fu Manchu laughed. "You didn't see the real trust crisis between Batman and Superman. I want you to look at the information again. Why did such a huge conflict occur the first time Batman and Superman met? Have the problems between them been resolved? Superman trusts Batman, but does Batman trust Superman? Batman has always wondered if Superman would become the dictator, the one who would control humanity. Then let's help him realize this suspicion. By attacking Superman's trust in Batman, Batman's suspicion of Superman will be realized. I call this plan God of the World. This is the real plan to deal with Batman." Fu Manchu said faintly, "I won't lose forever." Pull up load next chapters. Chapter 12:17. Oh my God! Why can't I find the third prophet? The small spider had been moving around the metropolis for a long time. People were dying in Gotham City every second, and he, who was Batman's biggest support, could not find the third prophet. This was supposed to be impossible. Batman told the small spider many of the truths he had deduced. The small spider, who had been treated like a Boy Scout by the Holy Shield and the Legion, had taken on such a heavy responsibility for the first time. This gave him a strong sense of responsibility. When she wants to see me, even if I don't move, she will come to me. If she doesn't want to see me, I won't be able to find a prophet who can predict the future. The small spider knew this, but he was like a headless fly, searching the places where he and the third prophet had appeared. After another disappointment, he took off his mask in frustration. He sat down on the bench in Central Park and tried to remember where the third prophet might appear. Someone sat down next to him and handed him a cup of Coke. The small spider raised his head and was so shocked that he was speechless. "Director Nick? Why are you here? Why was I sent to this world? What happened?" The one-eyed dragon smiled. "Peter, I know you have a lot of questions. We can talk slowly." "Talk slowly? No, I don't have time. Uncle Nick, there are many people in Gotham waiting for me to save. I have to find the third prophet, or else the consequences will be unimaginable." "Find the girl from the Stark family?" Nick smiled. "When she wants to see you, you can't escape no matter how deep you hide. When she doesn't want to see you, how will you find her?" "The Stark family." The small spider was shocked. He realized he did not know the third prophet's name. "Congratulations, Peter. You will inherit the wealth of the Stark family and become the richest person in America, if you and the Stark family's girl didn't sign a prenuptial agreement. You will hook up with the richest heiress in America. Young man, you've struck it rich. Call him Daddy Stark now." "My mind is in a mess." "What are you talking about?" Nick smiled and said, "Haven't you figured it out yet, Peter? Why would the third prophet look for you? Why would the three-prophet system judge you as destroying the world? Why did you come to this world? You should already know. This universe was created by three prophets. The first prophet, Franklin, created a universe. The second prophet, Professor, pulled the souls of all humans and all intelligent creatures who died later into this universe. Then, who is the third prophet? Chen. No. Everyone knows that there's something wrong with him. How could the professor trust Chen and cooperate with him? Now that it has spread to this world, the truth about the three prophets has been distorted. The second prophet became Chen, and the third prophet became the professor. Everything was to cover up one person, the original third prophet. Nick Fury explained to the little spider, "I'll start from when you lost consciousness. In the last mission of the Holy Shield, we need to find the power left by Messiah and the four horsemen. Among them, the power left by war is vibranium, the power left by plague is the primitive virus, and the power left by famine is the stairway of the sun. Only by finding these four powers can we find the power left by Messiah, Genesis. The power of Genesis is in the Tower of Babel. After Dr. Tony Stark and Steve Rogers came to the origin, they gathered the four powers. Stark's super-heavy nuclear element is a mutated form of vibranium. Of course, it also belongs to the power of the War Horsemen. The mental pollution suffered by Stark is also a side of the death meme pollution. In addition, the Stairway of the Sun evolved from famine and the primitive virus that was later injected into Steve's body. Only the two of them could break through to origin. They met Messiah. At that moment, Stark and Rogers learned a secret, and that was Genesis. The secret of why the ancient human civilization built the Tower of Babel, and the secret of the Tower of Babel that Messiah did not hesitate to create the spirit of vengeance to destroy the ancient civilization. Stark and Rogers had different views on the secret of Genesis. The power of Genesis cured Stark's madness and made Rogers a perfect Superman. But the two of them had fundamental contradictions. They began to really fight for different ideals. At that time, our world was facing destruction. Humans were shaped by the four elements represented by the four horsemen of the Messiah: the matter of war, the evolution of famine, the divinity of plague, and the spirit of death. But when the horsemen of death created us, they left a back door, a door of the soul. Behind the door of the soul is the most chaotic spiritual sea, the essence of all spirits. It represents the freedom of the human spirit, and it also represents the barrier between the intellectual world and the omniscient world. It is a restraint, but also a protection. The test of the horsemen of death was to open this barrier, to let the human spirit face the dangers outside the intellectual world, those indescribable things. The test of Skynet was the matter of war, the test of famine was evolution, and the test of plague virus was the outflow of divinity. These apocalypse disasters, the Messiah's test of humanity, we have the answers. The seal of leader of the sacred shield, the war with the Zerg, the Tower of Babel incident. Only the test of death, we have no chance of success. So, the leader of the sacred shield at that time, Chen, who had a very suspicious background, invited me to witness the opening of the Soul Gate. We formulated a plan to steal the sky and replace the sun, which was to back up the soul information of all humans and back up the entire timeline. Then, when the time was right, when all humans became lunatics, we would establish a pure land and restore our world. This plan requires a backup of information. We'll work together to banish Strange out of time. That way, he'll retain the information of the timeline, and the time after that won't exist for him. When we pull him back into time, we'll have the chance to deny and change the past. But we still need someone to back up everyone's soul information. So I went to find the leader of the Astrals, the strongest psionic, Professor. But after Stark and Steve returned from Origins, they had a disagreement. Steve did not agree with my approach. He thought that after the human spirit of the world had collapsed, the backup that was restored was no longer themselves. But Stark agreed with my approach. So the war happened. The Sacred Shield and the Avengers had a civil war. Some stood on Steve's side, and some agreed with Stark and me. In the end, I had to persuade one of the strongest heroes on Earth, Ms. Marvel, to intervene. At that time, Stark and Rogers were too strong. Their strength was far beyond that of the past heroes on Earth. Only Ms. Marvel had the power to intervene. So I asked Ms. Marvel to intervene at the most critical moment of the decisive battle between Stark and Rogers. Together with Stark, she sent Rogers into Origins and eliminated the disagreement. You call that eliminating the disagreement? Little Spider was shocked. You murdered the captain. We were all for the sake of this world. Rogers' idea was completely unworkable. He thought that we could pass the test of death. Nick Fury spread his hands and looked around at this strange universe. He smiled and said, "It turned out that we were right. Our plan preserved the last hope for our world." In the end, both Stark and the Professor joined our plan and established the Three Prophets system. They joined forces to summon a mutant from the future who could create a universe, Dr. Reed and Sue's son, Franklin. Franklin used his own ability to create a universe, dividing it into a physical universe and a metaphysical universe, a dualistic world of spirit and matter. Then the Professor backed up everyone's consciousness. The three of them used their ability to predict the future to encrypt the coordinates of the spiritual universe and block the detection of death. So far, everything has gone according to plan. After the world was destroyed and humans completely went crazy, Franklin created the universe, the Professor restored everyone's soul backup, Stark set the physical rules of the universe, and at the same time, he summoned Strange to restore the timeline and make this spiritual universe completely imitate the physical universe. People won't even feel any changes. They won't even know what happened. Even if they go back in time, they won't be able to find this part of history. Because the timeline of this universe is complete. And we, those who know the truth, will re-establish the World Security Council to supervise and protect the secret of the destruction of this world, so that death can't discover this world. The little spider was shocked speechless by this series of shocking news. It took a while before she recovered and asked, "What about now? Shouldn't I have appeared after the period of losing consciousness? Why did I come to this world? Why is Doctor Strange still trapped outside of time?" Nick said tiredly, "Everything went according to plan, but after the universe created by Franklin fell into an uncertain state, the Professor restored everyone's soul backup. When Stark was responsible for summoning Strange to restore the timeline backup, Stark suddenly betrayed them. He suddenly attacked and seriously injured the Professor, and summoned Chen-Ong. Chen-Ong killed the Professor, but he didn't restore everyone's soul backup. Instead, he used the data to create this universe. He used the spirit, soul, emotions, and cognition of all humans as materials to shape the humans of this universe. Batman, the Joker, Superman, the Flash, and Neptune Arthur were all created with the emotions, cognition, and soul data of countless people. He used our universe as materials to create this world. As his accomplice, Stark, so the second prophet of this world is Chen-Ong, and the third prophet is Tony Stark. But before the Professor died, in order to retain the last hope, the Professor made a backup of all human soul data and transferred it to Tony Stark's body, creating a life out of nothing. She is Stark's daughter. The Professor thought that this was the only way to protect these backups from being erased and to retain a glimmer of hope. This girl is a mutant. She inherited part of the Professor's and Stark's abilities and became the third prophet. Later, Stark erased all traces of his existence and became Dr. Manhattan of this world, carrying out a plan. This is also why he betrayed Genesis. After the ancient civilization found the power of the Messiah, they carried out the ultimate goal of the Tower of Babel project, Genesis, And we, the World Security Council, a group of pitiful people who have lost our home and all our loved ones, have always wanted to complete the original plan. We found you, Peter Parker, trapped in the time gem. Then we made a plan. The information or storage space, originally used to restore our world, has been occupied by a new world. To restore the backups, the only way is to delete this information. So we summoned Reed and let him meet Sue, so that they will be pregnant with Franklin. Originally, Franklin was in a state of existence, but did not exist in this universe. This is what we have calculated. Franklin's power can maintain his own existence, which is to constantly create a possible version of himself in the timeline. Only this state can support the entire universe. Once Franklin confirms his own existence or non-existence, the entire universe will lose its support and collapse with a bang. Everything will be destroyed, and we will fight for that opportunity, the opportunity to restore our world. Summon Strange, guide the third prophet, this high-dimensional information backup, and use all the souls and matter of this universe as materials to restart our world. When the time comes when you open your eyes, you will return to the moment when you lost consciousness. All your loved ones, friends, that world will return. Sue is already pregnant. Franklin is about to be born. At that time, the first prophet will disappear, and the entire world will be destroyed. That moment is coming. Nick said calmly, "Peter, join us and save our world." The little spider was confused. He held his head in pain and shouted in a daze, "Auntie May, Gwen." Thinking of his family, lover, and everything he was familiar with, he could not help but burst into tears. He cried. After coming to this strange world, the little spider had been suppressing his fear and confusion, alone in a strange land. Only he knew the fear in the depths of his heart. Why did he come to a strange world the moment he opened his eyes? What had happened to the original world? Was Auntie May all right? Was the universe safe from the crisis of destruction? Where was New York? Everything here was like New York, but what about his neighbors? "I want to go home." The little spider knelt in the strange metropolis and sobbed, "I want to go back to see Auntie May." The little spider finally knew the truth of the two worlds. He knelt in this strange world and cried bitterly. He found that his worst-case scenario had come true. His original world was destroyed. Everyone was dead. Nick came before the little spider and patted his head. "Like an elder," he said, "I also want to go home. We will be able to go home soon." The Evil Six created a human god. The current Superman is nothing to worry about, but he has lost his only weakness. Determined to save the world, he will soon realize that the world is about to be destroyed. In order to save the world, Superman will sacrifice himself and enter Origin to meet Steve Rogers. You should know what Steve Rogers will do, right? He will give up all his power to complete Superman and make him the perfect ultimate Superman. He will save the world at all costs. He will become our biggest obstacle. The ultimate Superman has the ability to replace Franklin and support the universe. The Justice League will attack the World Security Council. Originally, we did not care about them, but with the human god, things will be different. Stark, or rather, Dr. Manhattan, was obsessed with his own project Genesis. This time, no one will stop the ultimate Superman. For our world, you can't use the time gem to reverse time, restore Gotham City, and revive the people of Justice League. These people are not like us. If we want to save our world, we must destroy their world. The current human god is not perfect, but once Gotham is restored, he will understand that to save the world and uphold justice, he needs omnipotent power. The original Superman was afraid of his own power, so he could not become a god. If Superman starts to desire power, the power to uphold justice, he will understand where he needs this power from. For our world, child. Chapter 12:18. Aunt May. The little spider sat on the rooftop of a tall building in the metropolis. He lowered his head and struggled in his heart. What should I do, Aunt May? I miss you so much. Even if you ask me to drink the secret nutritional juice, I will drink it. The little spider was unprecedentedly fragile. Everything in his head was a mess. He remembered what his uncle told him before he died: with great power comes great responsibility. He wanted to help others, and he wanted to take his own responsibility. But this time, the responsibility was so heavy that the little spider began to fear. Uncle Ben, you didn't tell me that this responsibility is so heavy that I can't breathe. I don't know what to do. When you don't know what to do, just flip a coin. The third prophet came behind Peter. She sat down beside Peter and handed him a coin. The little spider looked up in surprise. Prophet? Yes, I hid from you to let you know this. The prophet said calmly. What should I do? Nick said you. The little spider wiped his tears in a hurry. Don't care what he said. Ask yourself what you are going to do. The third prophet said, you know, every time I flip a coin, I know the result before it falls. It's the same with many games, so I want to try a completely unknown game where I let the coin decide what I want to do. Did you find a way? The little spider asked. Then I grew up. The third prophet said, only children decide a dilemma by flipping a coin. Adults know what they want to do before the coin falls. You are the same, Peter. The third prophet looked at Peter and touched his fingertips with her fingers. The little spider's fingertips were a little cold. At this moment, the little spider wanted to ask the prophet what decision he had made, but just as the prophet had said, when he wanted to ask, or even before he knew the truth, he had already understood his heart. He just couldn't accept it. That was why he was so sad. Because he knew that he had left home forever. Those warm past, those who were reluctant to leave, eventually became memories. He couldn't go home. Spider-Man stood up as if he had grown up in an instant. He said to the third prophet, I'm going to get the Eye of Agamotto. Nick, at least he told me how to save this world. Although I think Superman is wrong, we need him now. The third prophet laughed. She held Spider-Man's cold hand and whispered, I'll take you to Constantine. Don't worry about that one-eyed man. He can't find us. What the prophet didn't say was that in her 12,500 deductions, Spider-Man struggled, cried, even self-destructed, feared, denied, but his decision never changed. Any hero had to accept the process of growth, no matter how painful it was. Why would she choose to help Nick and the others? That world was their world. What did it have to do with her being a prophet? This was the world of the third prophet. She was now in the same world as Spider-Man. This was what the third prophet was after, and the reason why she betrayed the third prophet. Among the third prophet, only she belonged to this world, and only she was willing to protect this world. To stand together with another hero who was willing to protect this world. When they walked down the building, Constantine appeared beside them. Half of the sun had already risen above the horizon. Superman had made a painful choice. He chose to bear the responsibility of letting live. He killed all those who resisted and brought the serum to those who were chosen to live. Although the internal disputes of the Justice League were boiling, they had no other choice but to agree with Superman's choice. The Flash had not been able to save anyone in time. He was always one step away. Every citizen he wanted to save was killed before his eyes, and it was driving him crazy. His conscience was torturing him crazily. But to give him a breather, the Evil League did not stop him from injecting the serum into the citizens of Gotham. Otherwise, Barry would have lost his belief in becoming a hero forever. When the last bit of the sun was about to rise from the ground, Batman looked coldly at the place where the sun had risen. The abandoned people of Gotham also looked at the sun. Some of them wailed in despair, some cursed at the Justice Alliance, and some hugged and kissed under the sun. Together, they welcomed the end of the world. Superman looked at the tragedy that was about to happen from the sky. No one knew what he was thinking. They could only see his back becoming more and more lonely. Superman still belonged to the Fortress of Solitude. He did not belong to Earth. Humanity slowly disappeared from Superman's eyes. To prevent this from happening again, for justice, he had to become the god that was always right. At this time, in the last leap of the morning sun, in the middle of the bright red sun, 3 figures slowly appeared on the horizon. Little Spider held the Eye of Agamotto with both hands. He wore a crimson mechanical glove. Constantine stood beside him with a cigarette in his mouth, still wearing the yellow trench coat. The third prophet smiled at Batman from afar and mouthed, "I've helped you again. You must save this world." Batman revealed an ugly smile. Behind him, 3 bodies lay in the Batmobile: Arthur, Shazam, and Steelbones. Because Hawkman and Hawkwoman had decided to leave this world and end the curse that had tortured them for 4,000 years, Batman did not resurrect them on his own. There were also the heroes who died when the Watchtower exploded. Everyone came to Gotham City that was about to be destroyed. As the Eye of Agamotto slowly opened, a magical green light covered the entire Gotham City. The collapsed buildings started to recover, the blood on the streets started to disappear, and the wounds on the corpses started to close up. The zombies that started to turn into zombies started to lose their ferocious expressions and the black blood flowing out of their noses and mouth. The zombies that pounced on their families retreated step by step. They started to regain their senses, and they found that the blood on their right arms started to disappear. Through the Eye of Agamotto, the little spider found the cause of their poisoning in the timeline and erased the source. Arthur coughed and sat up in the coffin. He blocked the sunlight with his hand and said, "Strange sunlight. Where is the ceiling of my house?" Then he touched his upper body in surprise. Looking at the beautiful tattoo that was undamaged, he said, "I remember someone cut a big scar here? Am I dreaming?" Steelbones was even more horrified. All that was left of him was a crushed electronic eye. His entire body flew over from some unknown corner of the universe. When he gathered, he spoke with the grid. "Where is this place?" Then, the grid was imprisoned by the backup Batman had installed on Steelbones. He screamed as he was imprisoned by Steelbones. "You're indeed Batman. You always have a plan." Steelbones looked up at Batman's back in surprise. Shazam coughed and woke up. When he saw Steelbones, his face was filled with horror. He shouted, "Shazam!" But the lightning that he had imagined did not appear. Batman was not that kind to resurrect Wizard Shazam. With the help of the Time Gem, the whole of Gotham was resurrected. The serum turned back into blood and returned to Lois's body. In the most tightly guarded place of the Justice League, the mummified Marcia's body started to fill up. She opened her eyes tiredly. Superman had appeared in front of her. He buried his head in his foster mother's hand and held it. "Is this your plan?" Wonder Woman was finally happy when she saw that her companions were resurrected. She joked to Batman, "Good job." Batman shook his head and said, "I didn't win." He looked at Superman's back and whispered, "Everything can't go back to the past. This will only make Superman believe that justice supported by power is true justice. He has decided to sacrifice himself and become a god." Superman said goodbye to his foster mother, Marcia. "I'm sorry, Mom." "Clark, you've done well," Martha said gently. "Not good enough." Superman said goodbye to his mother and came to Spider-Man and the third prophet. He said gently to Peter, "Thank you, Peter. But I should do what I need to do." Spider-Man did not understand, but the third prophet stopped him and asked him to show the Eye of Agamotto to Superman. Superman tapped on the Time Gem that had not been closed yet and disappeared in front of them. He had returned to the Origins and was looking at Steve Rogers, who possessed the perfect Superman serum and half of his body outside the Origins. He closed his eyes and entered the Origin. Batman raised his head. He had saved the world, but he had lost a friend, the most important friend. If they were not facing the crisis of the world's destruction, they would have fought to the death for the justice in their hearts. Superman was gone, and the ones who survived were the gods. Chapter 12:19. Superman had imagined all the strange scenes he would see after entering Origin. But when he actually entered Origin, he found that everything here was very simple, because it was a world of nothing. He did not see the other half of Steve Rogers' body, and the concept of seeing did not even exist. Superman reached out his hand curiously, and he found that he did not exist in a physical state here. Because before the Big Bang, there was no physical matter in this world. There was nothing here. There is an omniscient and omnipotent existence here, at the source of the origin, looking down on the world below, reaching out from here and controlling the entire multiverse. Of course, you can't see him without the 4 powers left behind by the 4 horsemen. A voice came from the world of nothing. Steve Rogers. Superman was puzzled. I know a little about what you said. He is the Apocalypse, the one who destroyed your world? No, he is not. He is the Messiah. Jesus, the Prophet, the Son of God. All the sacred titles you can think of belong to him. Steve appeared in front of Superman in his classic blue and white uniform. The origin is very strange. Nothing exists here, but everything exists. So your state here is very strange. Here, thoughts and thoughts are visible, but the body and matter are invisible, so I just made you think of my image. I already understand why you are here. Don't blame me for invading your privacy, because everything is written on you. If you want me to not see it, you need to be focused enough. Captain Steve, thank you for everything you have done for our world. Superman whispered. Steve had a strange expression on his face. But I died before your world was created. I don't know about your world. Of course, after you appeared here, I think I have enough understanding of the Apocalypse plan. You mean the survivors of the previous universe, who intend to use our universe as raw materials to restore their saved backups. I sympathize with their experience. After knowing about this, I am even more determined to protect our world, so I will not allow this to happen. So, are you here to ask for my opinion? Steve joked. Ask me, the survivor, if I want to save that world at the cost of destroying yours? Superman's expression became more serious. He thought that Rogers would support him, but it seemed that Rogers' attitude was different. You, heroes of the previous universe, there are many true warriors and heroes among you who left a deep impression on me. They chose to fight for our world, and refused to sacrifice countless lives for the hypocritical resurrection. Rogers was not surprised at all and said frankly, "This is a painful choice, but this is not the plan of the Apocalypse. The Apocalypse does not care about restoring a universe. It does not care about life, does not care about the universe, and does not care about the meaning of our existence. Since you already know that the one controlling everything is the Apocalypse, you should not believe in this naive plan." Superman, that's not what you're trying to stop. Our universe was destroyed by ourselves. Stark, Nick, Ms. Marvel, they're all involved. The plan you're talking about is just their compensation, an attempt to salvage something. Nick revealed their plan, but that cunning one-eyed man only revealed a small part of it. Rogers sighed. Our universe has an indescribable darkness and disaster. It is called the Apocalypse. It believes that it is qualified to test all civilizations. It sowed seeds and created many races. Then, in the test, it will determine whether or not they can survive. This is the disaster of the Apocalypse. There is another universe, one that is subtly similar to our universe, but also different. It is attached to the periphery of our multiverse, like a peninsula on our universe. The Apocalypse was born there. He destroyed that universe, and many survivors escaped to our world, to Earth. Before humans were born, they were known as the ancient civilization. In the fight against the Apocalypse, we will, of course, touch on history. All the ancient civilizations fell due to an accident about 5,000 years ago, the Tower of Babel incident. At that time, all the ancient and powerful civilizations on Earth worked together to build the Tower of Babel in Babylon. Just as the myth says, Babylon was destroyed by the Tower of Babel. The Messiah took action and severely damaged or even destroyed the ancient civilizations that participated. At that time, we thought that the ancient civilizations must have discovered the true weakness of the apocalypse, so the threatened Messiah destroyed them. HIELD. A secret service agency that protected humanity at that time decided to unearth the secret of the power left behind by the Messiah and the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Finding the power left behind by the four horsemen will allow us to find the power left behind by the Messiah. We think it has something to do with the Tower of Babel. During the last apocalypse, Stark's soul was contaminated by the dark titan created by the apocalypse. This contamination made him frantically search for the power left behind by the apocalypse. He found the life-evolution equation, which is the blueprint of God's creation of all life in the apocalypse. According to this blueprint, he transformed himself into a quantum life. We came to the origin during the battle. At that time, we carried the four powers: war, famine, plague, and death. So we saw the Messiah, the Tower of Babel project, and the secret left behind by the Messiah, the secret of Genesis. The ancient civilizations did not give up on their resistance against the apocalypse. They discovered the secret left behind by the Messiah, the human completion project. Using the power left behind by the project, they built the torch to shoot the light of the soul across the entire multiverse, connecting all parallel worlds. Then, they learned of all possibilities in the future, including the arrival of the more powerful ancient civilizations, the Revolutionary Alliance, and the return of the apocalypse. They used all their efforts, the entire universe working together to stop the apocalypse. However, in the process of the destruction of one universe after another, they gradually despaired. That was because they had already tried every method within the scope of our multiverse, but they were unable to prevent the parallel universes from being destroyed one after another. The timelines were slowly contracting, leading to the same future destruction. The tool to shoot the light of the soul across the entire multiverse was the Tower of Babel built using the power left behind by the war, vibranium. In the end, the five great gods of the multiverse, the embodiment of the five concepts that the entire universe sacrificed everything to strengthen them against the apocalypse, sending a single revelation to the ancient civilizations. The eternal God was the embodiment of the concept of time in the multiverse, and he told the ancient civilizations that there was another universe beyond the multiverse. He revealed to them a completely different multiverse. Thus, the ancient civilizations decided to seek help from another multiverse. They modified the Tower of Babel and shot the light of the soul of all intelligent life in the multiverse to the other universe. They believed that only by combining the power of both universes could they have a chance to save everything. Thus, the Tower of Babel was destroyed 7 days later, and all the ancient civilizations were heavily damaged by the apocalypse that came out of nowhere. After discovering this, Tony Stark, who had recovered from his madness, believed that he had found a way to deal with the apocalypse. And that was to restart the Genesis project. At first, I thought that he was right, that it was the only way to save our universe, but Thanatos came to me. He was a cosmic villain, a ruler of the Milky Way galaxy. He told me that the Messiah didn't destroy the Tower of Babel because it was a threat, but because she didn't like the examinees cheating. Moreover, the Messiah raised a fatal question. Why would the other multiverses risk destruction to save our universe, and provoke the unspeakable darkness of the apocalypse? Thus, the eternal God and the five great gods had a new plan. The apocalypse became interested in their plan because of the resistance of this universe. All the variables were no longer enough to exceed his calculations. This hopeless resistance made him bored, so he wanted to create a huge variable to give us the space to create miracles. The original plan of the ancient civilizations was to let the eternal God and the concept God of another multiverse embrace destiny, allowing the two multiverses to temporarily fuse. But the Apocalypse plan was to let the eternal God forcefully insert destiny, and let our universe forcefully insert into another multiverse, breaking through the barrier between the two universes and creating a passage to that universe. In the face of the apocalypse, they would stand with us sooner or later. Even if they didn't, the five great gods who fused the two universes would become even more powerful. This way, they would have the capital to fight against the apocalypse. The Thanatos received the power of death from a parallel world destroyed by the apocalypse. He knew the truth of the plan, and his own memories and power. He believed that bringing the apocalypse to another universe and dragging the other multiverse into the abyss of destruction was wrong. He wanted to save the other universe, so he created the Alliance of Saviors, trying to destroy Earth, the power left behind by the Messiah and the Four Horsemen, and the power of Genesis. I think that the Thanatos was right. Even if there was no hope, we shouldn't let the apocalypse obtain another universe. But Stark and Nick believed that the Genesis plan was the only hope to save our universe. We had a civil war. The result is as you can see. So the destruction of the single universe we were in was not only the disaster of the apocalypse, but also the material for the plan of the five great gods and the apocalypse to open up another universe. Now they have created a binary universe, using the material foundation of our universe to create a parallel world in the opposite multiverse. This world was created according to the timeline of the opposite multiverse, so this universe could pass through the wall of origin between the two universes. The Three Prophets system, is actually a set of Trojan viruses. A Trojan virus specially designed for the wall of origin. 3 sets of unlocked-on variables encrypt our universe, disguising it as a concept that is harmless to the other universe, and enter there. As for you, the Justice Alliance, they imitated the anchor point created by the heroes of the other universe, anchoring this binary universe to the opposite universe. This way, this world will become a bridge between our universe and the opposite universe. But that's not all. They decided to destroy this world and blast open a passage in the middle of the wall of origin. All parallel worlds in the multiverse only have one portion of matter, and all parallel universes use one portion of matter. This is also the fundamental difference between the two universes. Any opened portal has the possibility of being repaired. But if all the matter of the parallel universe we are in is mixed with the total mass of the opposite multiverse, then every portion of matter will become a perfect portal beacon, and the two universes will never be separated. This is the Genesis plan, to create a world where the two universes merge, and then destroy it. Superman, bring my power to stop their madness. We are the saviors. Superman knew the whole truth, and was completely shocked by this dark plan. As for the reboot plan, it does exist, but it is a reward for Stark and Nick's crazy execution of this plan. When the two universes are connected, the apocalypse will destroy a world, and use that world as the raw material to restore their world. This way, Stack and Nick could go all out and do whatever they wanted. They will no longer feel guilty. Even if it means destroying their own world to invade another multiverse, even if it means destroying a single universe and using it as the raw material to resurrect their own universe. /book_15466/lgenius1 second to remember website address. Mobile URL. Chapter 1220. It's time for the final battle. Batman looked up at the moon and made a judgment. Meanwhile, Chun-Ong was still in the laboratory, dissecting himself. There was a period of time when he did not conduct human experiments and abided by human scientific ethic. However, when he realized that all of this was completely meaningless, he overturned this principle. Now, however, he began to reduce the number of human experiments because he realized that there was a type of experimental subject that was more effective. That was himself. Using some test subjects to conduct experiments, no matter how perfect it was, could only obtain information and data from one perspective. If he used himself as a test subject, it would be a double surprise. For Chen-Ong, there could be countless versions of himself at the same time. And Chen-Ong could also easily change the objective state of his body, so except for some experiments involving the mind that required a wider range of specimens, Chen-Ong began to make all kinds of copies of himself to do experiments. His artificial intelligence state, his Kryptonian bloodline, entropic life form, nuclear life form, all kinds of material body states, Chen-Ang's copies of himself were enough to form an evolutionary equation of life. One of the negligible consequences was that the experimentals, who had dared to express their emotions to Chen-Ong at first, instantly lost their will to resist after seeing the experiment Chen-Ong had performed on them. Like plastic bags in a Category 10 typhoon, they instantly disappeared without a trace. All that was left was an unforgettable fear and fear. Today was the end of an important experiment, and it was also the time to start preparing for the merger of the project team. Chen-Ong ended the experiment earlier, and the remaining time was worth wasting on some mental communication with the future test subjects and answering their doubts. Now, the Marvel Multiverse Experiment Project, except for a few key projects related to several civilizations of the Revolutionary Alliance, had entered a low period of production. After destroying countless timelines, the destructive experiments on the Marvel Parallel Universe finally made Chen-Ong realize its low value. This would not do. The fixed assets that Chen-Ong had invested in this universe, the 4 Horsemen of Apocalypse and the Messiah, had reached a large proportion. Although Chen-Ong had repeatedly tried to spread the 4 Horsemen to other universes, the experimental conditions in this universe were so mature, and the equipment and laboratories were in peak condition. It would be too wasteful to just abandon this universe. He needed to expand the experimental site and increase the number of project teams. Therefore, Chen Apocalypse made a plan and handed it over to Chen-Ong, the person in charge of the experimental project. The experimental project was the merger of 2 multiverse, increasing infinite variables in an instant, bringing about a climax of experimental benefit. Chen-Ong carefully selected a universe with the most similar nature to the Marvel Universe. It would also provide a preliminary verification for the next big plan. That anticipated plan was called the Ultimate Laboratory. Chen-Ong intended to create a laboratory universe that would never stop expanding, the ultimate multiverse if the 2 multiverses were successfully fused. After backing up the multiverse, he would fuse them together without destroying the diversity of the multiverse, creating a massive multiverse system that would serve as his laboratory. Chen's apocalypse could now continue to be researched and would no longer lack materials or project. This gloomy, psychopathic plan was just like a biology enthusiast who wanted to create an incomparably rich ecosystem to provide him with research samples. Chen-Ong was also committed to creating such an ecosystem of species and civilization. Diana was sorting out her equipment. She carefully took care of the artifacts given by the Amazon Queen and her brother, the god of fire, and nurtured them to their best state, ignoring the Olympian god's incessant pleas and warnings in her ears. "Don't provoke him, Diana, please. He will destroy us all." "Hasn't he already done that?" Diana looked up and asked, "What are you still afraid of? Isn't he already prepared to destroy the world? As gods, can't you be a little bolder and fight against him? What else do you have to lose? Even if the world is destroyed, we still have hope of survival, but against him, we have no hope." The trivial voices were silent for a while before a wise female voice whispered, "We are not gods before the prophet, we are mortals." Barry the Flash was very afraid, but unlike the Olympian gods, he was not afraid of the prophet, but he was afraid of his own power. When he found that his power had its own will and could be controlled by the enemy, he became afraid of the god's speed power. He could only run to the god's speed generator. He had to face the source of his power. After entering the universe of the God's speed generator, Barry met another Barry. He kept running in the dark universe, and the God's speed power was generated from every step he took. You have to stop him, Barry. The other Barry Allen listened to Barry's story and said, I've always had a question. After the flashpoint, I messed up everything and rebooted the entire universe. At that time I was very confused. What was outside the wall of origin? Now I know, outside the wall of origin is everything. The wall of origin is our universe's protective barrier. It is a defense system that prevents the second prophet, a crazy and evil existence, from invading our world. But now, he has obviously succeeded. He disguised this universe as something harmless to our universe and entered the wall of origin through the encryption of the three prophets. He imitated our universe and created everything. Superman, Batman, and you, Barry. He also created life, magic, and even planet Apocalypse and Krypton. But there are two things he could not create: the God's speed power and the emotional spectrum unique to our universe. That's why there's me. Bali Allen, who had been used as a hamster to generate electricity, woke up and said, He lured me and trapped me in this small universe to create the godly speed power. As for why the Seven Lanterns' core disappeared, I can understand now. This is because the Seven Lanterns' core were also brought over from my universe. Obviously, they knew something. Therefore, when the power of the emotional spectrum took root in this universe, they were killed. When I was saving our world, I saw countless dangerous, crazy, and unbelievably powerful opponents. But I have to admit that this is the most dangerous, crazy, and powerful opponent I have ever seen. Your universe is already hopeless. That's why you are grabbing at the last straw. This is not an unbearable choice. They are just doing it for their own benefit. But Barry, this universe still has the Justice League. Although you were cloned by him, you are still the Justice League. Go. Barry Allen injected his God's speed power into Barry's body. Tell him that cloning you was the worst thing he did, because the Justice League can always stop the ambitions of these lunatics. The Flash felt that his God's speed power had broken through a limit. With the help of the other Barry, he broke the shackles. He no longer needed a generator to use the God's speed power. Now, he was also creating the God's speed power. He had become the real Flash. Arthur looked in the direction of Atlantis with a complicated expression. There, Mira had become someone else's queen. Now, he had to fight to save his country, his lover, his universe, his everything. Spider-Man accompanied the third prophet as they strolled through the street. He put down his Spider-Man uniform and accompanied Lily Stark with the identity of the young Peter Parker. They had been playing for a day and Lily seemed a little tired. She held her forehead and said, Peter, actually, if you want to talk about tomorrow's battle. Peter spread his hands and said, Then don't. Leave us a little hope. The little spider sighed. I think I recognize who he is, someone we have no hope of defeating. Peter, what the prophet sees does not mean everything. Lily held Peter's face and said, There is a possibility that we cannot see and the second prophet cannot decide, and that is a miracle. And I. Her voice began to sound like she was about to cry. She steadied her voice and tried to prevent it from breaking down. Believe in miracles. There will always be people who can create the impossible. That is what people call a hero. She closed her eyes and the two kissed. Wonder Woman took off her guardian headband and let the power of Ares flow through her body. That powerful, uncontrollable, dangerous power. Superman walked out of his origins and became a perfect state, the state of the Golden Age. He also obtained the power he wanted to protect the world. Batman put on the armor created by the Justice League, Hellbat. The Flash instantly arrived at the Hall of Justice from the Dynamo universe. The little spider and the third prophet stepped onto the prepared battlefield hand in hand. See, King Arthur and Steel Bones also did their best to modify and strengthen themselves during this period of time, and conducted targeted training for themselves. Strange had already made preparations outside of time. He was prepared to sacrifice everything. If the Righteous Alliance had any hope of success, he would fight to the death. If they failed, Strange would settle for the next best thing and revive his own world. Constantine confessed to Zatanna, but Zatanna refused to forgive him. She said, "If we can survive, I will forget everything that happened before." People say that only when death brushes past can a person see their heart clearly at that time. "I will give up magic for you," Constantine said. That was a beautiful flag. Steel Bones opened the sonic tunnel to the moon. When all the heroes stepped onto the empty moon, there were many heroes in the party, and some were even villains. Rascals, Clown Girl, Death Knell, Gorilla. There was also Shadow Pact, Teen Titan, Raptor, Ultima Alliance, and so on. On the other side was the entire World Security Council, all the people who survived from the old universe. For their own world, to save that sliver of a possible future, they were once heroes. Nick Fury, Little Pepper, Batman also saw the mastermind who had been trying to destroy the Justice League, the Evil Seven. Master Man, Bizarro, Madame Gao, Hawkeye, Spectre, Namor, and Grid. Bizarro had been resurrected, but Grid had never died. It was impossible to kill an artificial intelligence without cutting off the network. And the deepest shadow behind them, Chun-Ong. Or in a sense, Apocalypse. Not bad, not bad. Chun-Ong applauded and turned to Fu Manzhou. I am very satisfied with the quality of this batch of heroes. They will be good beacons and anchors. You have done a good job. My training of you was not in vain. Now they are more like, no, they are practically their original forms. For this universe to be so easily accepted by the DC multiverse, you have to remember this. Fu Manzhou, the first prophet as the cornerstone, will collapse in 2 hours. That is when he will be born. Stark, Chun-Ong said calmly. Behind him, a tall, naked man appeared. He did not look like Stark, but for Tony Stark it did not matter what he looked like. He could even be called Dr. Manhattan. I will not take action, Chun-Ong said calmly. My plan is complete. The rest is up to you. Chun-Ong ignored how Stark communicated with those people, but there was only one result. In order to fight against the demon, he had no choice but to become a demon. What a ridiculous choice. Those who stare into the abyss stares back. If one stayed close to Apocalypse for too long, they would become closer to him. Apocalypse was not safer than any other evil god. Now, if Stark were to look at his past, would he still be able to recognize himself? Although Dr. Stark still had a trace of humanity left, in order to save his universe, he had also used up his only humanity for this. This was the tragedy of struggling for the last thing he cared about, but in the end, he no longer cared about these things. Chun-Ong stood quietly on the observation platform, watching Earth. Behind him, the Evil Seven and the Alliance of Justice and Order were fighting to the death. However, he no longer had the hobby of participating in such things. His game was over. As time passed bit by bit, the Golden Superman went on a killing spree. Not a single one of his subordinates was a match for him, but in the end, he still faced off against Dr. Stark, and the fated battle began once again. After Diana fused with the War God's power, she became unimaginably powerful. Fortunately, Madame Gao was also very strange after being controlled by Tyrannical. The remaining people were evenly matched. In the end, Batman still had a plan to let them gain the upper hand one by one and win in the end. But so what? Chun-Ong did not care about that. Looking at Earth, he gently snapped his fingers. The universe instantly collapsed into a single point, and everyone died in an unimaginable explosion. The wall of origin broke. Eternity and infinity represented the entire multiverse. One of their hands pierced into the body of Destiny and another universe. The two universes collided, and a huge hole appeared in the wall of origin. A universe that was covered in scars and drowned in darkness like a tide was like a life-saving straw. It began to fuse with the other universe. This process was incomparably long, but it had already begun irrevocably. Chapter 12:21. It's time. Tao Lord Yuanyu sat above the river of time. Beneath him were countless illusory universes, from the past to the future, condensing into a mighty river of time. This river had countless tributaries, and in each tributary was an illusory figure. These illusory Tao figures that traversed the river of time and were scattered across the parallel universes acted as fulcrum, providing Tao Lord Yuanyu with a key Tao marker. The end of the Tao was Dara. After Tao Lord Yuanyu condensed the Tao seed that gathered all his Tao principles, he kept exploring the river of time, constantly projecting himself into the additional selves of other parallel universes. Finally, he cultivated and polished his Tao seed, becoming the only one in all the world. After this step was the end of the Tao. He had to entrust his Tao fruit to the Dara heavens realm of Dara. By proving his Tao in Dara, Tao Lord Yuanyu could achieve unprecedented Tao karma in this universe. He had long been at the top. In this world, there had been no traces of the existence of celestial Lord Dara in the past 250,000 years. Even the few fellow Taoists who had achieved illusory Tao fruit and perfected golden immortal Tao karma had successively dissipated in the dangerous search for the Tao of Dara. If not for Daozu's scriptures, Tao Lord Yuanyu would have thought that the Dara realm was just an illusory legend. Legend had it that the highest of the 36 heavens was Dara heaven. At Yuanyu's realm, he could already understand the true meaning of the 36 heavens. The 36 heavens were the 36 layers of the world in the eyes of immortals. From the mortal world that mortals saw to the world of desire that could be seen, the 36 heavens were not layers of the immortal world, but the real world in the eyes of different cultivators. Therefore, although the worlds ruled by the myriad realm were divided into 5 immortals, chi refinement, soul formation, void reversal, and other cultivation realms, in the eyes of mighty figures like Tao Lord Yuanyu, the 36 heavens were a different world. They could more accurately divide the cultivation realms of cultivators. Of course, the 36 heavens were slightly more complicated, and there were 12 heavens to divide them. The great void heaven was attached to the ground, and one could see nothing at a glance, was the chi refinement realm, where one's mind wandered the great void and saw chi. He could feel the chi in his body, and his mind seemed to be in the void. Manifesting the heavens, wind, rain, thunder, lightning, clouds, mist, frost, and snow, all gathered within. Cultivating chi into spirit, wind, rain, thunder, lightning, clouds, mist, frost, and snow could all be formed from chi. In other words, it could be seen that the essence of wind, rain, thunder, and lightning was chi. The operation of the cardinal of heaven and earth could also be seen that it was formed from chi. It could transform the chi in one's body into wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. Initial refinement of magical power. Then there was the full moon sky, the roaming Taoist sky, the bright sun sky, the constellation sky, the Do Shu sky, the unmoving sky, the Cheong sky, the inferno sky, the Tusita sky, and finally, Dara. Such a heavenly realm was known as the exterior in Taoist karma. It meant that the known world was the scenery outside the heart. On the contrary, the scene in the heart reveals one's true self. Lord Yuanyu was a golden immortal, a karma rank lord of Tao. He was an exterior cultivator in the Tusita heaven, only one step away from the ultimate realm of cultivators, the end of the Tao, the Dara realm. The Azeroth heaven was a place where matter was unchanging and light was unchanging. It was the end of the cosmos and the beginning of light. It was a strange spacetime that encompassed everything outside of the heavens. To put it in simple terms, it was a place that existed above the spacetime that Tao Lord Yuanyu resided in. It was higher than the river of time, but it was also able to affect the cosmos downward. Time was a place where matter changed, while the matter of the Azeroth heaven remained unchanging. Lord Yuanyu had been meditating for tens of thousands of years before he could vaguely sense that world. To prove Dara, one had to find the mysterious Dara heaven. To find Dara heaven, one had to measure the universe. Lord Yuanyu distributed his Taoist body upstream and downstream of the timeline, expanding to the nearby parallel universe. On the one hand, he used the location of these Taoist bodies as coordinates, and through the coordinates, he could measure the point where all spacetime and matter did not change. At the same time, he kept swallowing the additional self, tracing the origin of the soul with his own homologous soul. All the additional self was a higher dimension or the projection of the innate true self into the material world. The Tao fruit was the total body of the innate true self and the material world. In order to perfect the Tao fruit, cultivators divided the Tao fruit into 36 or 12 heavens, which were essentially the cognitive world of the cultivator. Dara was where the innate true self was in the material world. It was above all spacetime and contained the essence of matter. Searching for the innate true self through different additional self was like calculating the location of a light source through a projection. It was also through the traces of the innate true self in different spacetime and parallel worlds to calculate the location of the innate true self. There were many tribulations in the process. Not only did the cultivator have to constantly adjust his body and mind to the process of returning to the innate true self, it was equivalent to constantly wearing away at the self. It was more dangerous than any inner demon tribulation. At the same time, he had to prevent the coordinates from falling off in the river of time, being washed into the river of time, or being thrown out of the river of time in the process of searching for Dara heaven. There was even greater horror: his mind would fall into some indescribable dimension of the universe. He needed to use the anchor in the material world, use the primordial soul Tao fruit to escape into the extreme darkness of the Mahakala tribulation that had no time, the heavenly fire tribulation that had high heat and energy active and destroyed his own information form, the inner demon tribulation that had a large amount of accumulated information to wash the corridor of his soul, and other extremely dangerous dimensions to find the supreme and eternal Dara heaven. Then, he would place the fruit of Tao in Dara heaven, attaining Tao in Dara and becoming an omniscient and omnipotent Lord of Dara who spread across the timelines and reached the end of Tao, able to wander at will, distort causality, and create all things. He would become a worm that sprawled across the timelines and grew in both directions. Tao Lord Yuanyu had tried several times, but he had nearly died in those dangerous tribulations. He had to constantly analyze and understand himself. He had to have an extremely high level of control over himself in order to survive this dangerous activity that left his cognitive world. He had to grasp the essence of his different selves and strengthen his heart. At the same time, he also had to have a considerable understanding of the material world. This required a very high level of knowledge. Otherwise, what the Yuan Shen saw would not be real. Once the Yuan Shen's perception fell into an unfamiliar environment, it would not be able to understand the information it sensed without sufficient knowledge. Unable to properly understand the information, it would be like a blind man touching an elephant, using its old cognitive system to forcibly understand. Then, the state of Tao in which the Yuan Shen explored Dara heaven would become an illusion. All perceptions would no longer be real. Once that happened, the structure of the cognitive world, the fruit of Tao, would have a lot of mistakes and chaos, and then it would either be Taoified, losing the self and wearing down the spirit, or demonized, the cognitive world would be completely twisted and crazy, and the fruit of Tao would be twisted, or fall into the mortal world. The fruit of Tao would be chaotic and mixed with a lot of wrong cognition. The few fellow Tao Lords who tried to break into Dara before Tao Lord Yuanyu all perished at this step. Countless other Tao Lords' senses and memories were mixed together chaotically. Tao Lord Yuanyu had either become a general, a romantic scholar, or a destitute beggar. He had different emotions and personalities. After stepping onto the path of cultivation, all sorts of fundamental differences in himself had been mixed together. Each of them was his true nature, and each of them was not his true nature. These chaotic perceptions and memories turned into illusions and appeared in Daolord Yuanyu's consciousness. Only then did Daolord Yuanyu realize that he had fallen into another tribulation. The tribulation of additional self was the sequela of expanding oneself to different worlds and merging different selves. The self was a kind of information architecture, which was naturally the most stable when it revolved around a core. However, a core of the self was like a point projected by the innate self to the real world, and it was impossible to calculate the location of the innate self. This kind of architecture was the most stable, and it was also impossible to grasp the difference between the innate self and the self. Only through conflict could one understand the innate self more deeply, and only through different projections of the additional self could one find the location of the innate self. Therefore, the difficulty was that on one hand, breaking into Dara required the conflict of different selves, and on the other hand, the conflict was wearing down the original self of Daolord Yuanyu. This was one of the simpler tribulations of Dara, the tribulation of additional self. Buddhism called it the self-image, and all living beings' image. Daolord Yuanyu had to abandon most of the self-structure. When faced with the conflict of the self, each self had a different personality, and each had different feelings. The best solution was to throw the feelings and personality out of the core of the self, making them an unimportant part of the self. This was relatively simple for Daolord Yuanyu. After all, he had been cultivating for nearly 10,000 years, and the more intense feelings and personality were the feelings he had when he was young, and he had long forgotten them. Therefore, when such conflicts occurred, he only needed to forget his feelings, and he would be able to marginalize most of the conflicts of the self, making them a dispensable part of the self. He would abandon most of the feelings and personality of the additional self that had been merged. Finally, the personality that had cultivated for 10,000 years would be the most stable at the core, and it would naturally marginalize the other selves. This was one of the simpler tribulations of Dara. After passing through countless strange and dangerous dimensions, the Tao bodies below him collapsed one by one. Finally, Daolord Yuanyu's eyes suddenly opened wide, and the overlapping Tao bodies and countless shadows overlapped in the river of time, superimposing that long stretch of time and space on a single point. An illusory Tao fruit suddenly leaped out of Daolord Yuanyu's head and fell into the river of time. It smashed on that point. Suddenly, the Tao fruit opened up a boundless, endless, unchanging, supreme world. Heaven of Dara. The last bit of Daolord Yuanyu's consciousness and natural spirit descended, entering the core of the Tao fruit. The heaven of Dara was within the Tao fruit. It wasn't a material world that truly existed, but a cognitive world that was developed after one's consciousness understood some of the supreme truths of the material world. After escaping into the heaven of Dara, the way one's consciousness understood the world underwent a complete transformation. Daolord Yuanyu felt that the essence of the entire universe was revealed in front of him. The river of time didn't exist, and it was just a manifestation of Yuanyu's understanding of spacetime. But now, his understanding of spacetime could no longer be expressed in such a superficial manner. He reappeared in the material world, and things appeared in his eyes. They were no longer rigid forms or chi, but extremely rich and comprehensive states that included all futures. He could see through their past, future, and all their attributes at a glance. The fate of any living creature could be seen at a glance. As far as he could see, he could even sense that his existence was extending upstream and downstream of time. He probed into the origins of the entire world and extended beyond time. After passing through countless years of time and the countless births and deaths of the myriad world, he arrived at an unimaginably vast universe, the primordial universe. In this universe, he sensed many life forms that were like him. If he was like a worm on a timeline, then he was brushing shoulders with countless pythons, divine dragons, and even the colossal earthly pythons that occupied the entire world. Downlord Yuanyu trembled and began to panic. The more he swam upstream, the more terrifying the other Dara he saw became. In the end, he saw a giant that surpassed his understanding and imagination, a giant that encompassed all concepts and everything. As far as he knew, the giant wielded a great axe and cleaved apart wind, earth, water, and fire. Pangu. Downlord Yuanyu called out in terror. Pangu was the Tao, and this was the side of the Tao that he saw. Because of his innate knowledge, he believed that the world was born from the creation of Pangu, which was why the creation of heaven and earth appeared in such a form before him. If the Grand Luo of a world believed that Pangu used the wheel to create heaven and earth, then he would also see Pangu using the wheel to create heaven and earth. Pangu was the Tao. Dara had stood before Pangu had created heaven and earth, which was why Dara was referred to as the end of the Tao. Pangu had created heaven and earth during the Taiji era. The end of time had created something out of nothing. The moment that something was born was when the Grand Change era was about to transform into the Grand Beginning era. The moment when the Khanate Chi was about to be born. Downlord Yuanyu had arrived at the moment when the Grand Change era was about to end. The Khanate Chi had been born out of nothing, and his body naturally didn't have any physical substance. The Grand Change era had been a boundless, empty universe. In fact, it wasn't even accurate to call it a universe, because there was neither time nor space. It was as if a tiny bit of elemental energy had been born out of nothing. However, this place wasn't deserted at all. In fact, it was quite lively. Take a look. Take a look. A yellow-robed Downlord priest shouted loudly in the void. Although he couldn't see the yellow robes or the Downlord priest, Dara was able to understand each other. All it took was a slight transformation to recognize this scene. A wisp of Khanate inextinguishable spiritual light will become your most suitable numinous treasure in exchange for a portion of karma. The yellow-robed Downlord priest shouted loudly, "It's definitely worth it. Although this brother of mine was born in the end of days, his aptitude is quite good. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to cultivate to the level of Dara. He's willing to become a numinous treasure for the immeasurable tribulations. All I ask is for the Great One's protection and cover up his track." At this moment, a white-robed Downlord priest walked over gracefully. When he saw the snake-shaped spiritual light, he revealed a look of delight and said, "This item is fated with Buddhism. All right. Then I'll entrust it to you, Great One." The yellow-robed Downlord priest wasn't dissatisfied at all. Instead, he was quite delighted. Downlord Yuanyu. The current Heavenly Lord Yuanyu was confused. He hurriedly tugged on the sleeves of a white-faced youth who was passing by and said, "Fellow Taoist, wait." When the youth heard this, he stopped in his tracks and said, "Are you new?" Heavenly Lord Yuanyu said humbly, "This is the first time this humble Taoist has come here. May I know what's so mysterious about this place? This Khanate inextinguishable spiritual light is." The youth smiled and said, "This is the end of the Tai era, when vital Qi hasn't been born. This is the starting point of all Dara's reversal of time and space. It's also the origin point of time in this universe. Dara has no beginning and no end. It has the same lifespan as the universe. It's the most ancient, so everyone was born here. We arrived at the time before vital Qi was born. Because matter was born after Pangu split the heavens in the Tai era, when yin and yang were divided, there's no matter here. Meanwhile, vital Qi was still born during the Grand Beginning era, which is the next moment. Therefore, there's no vital Qi here. Only Dara's essence, a bit of spiritual light, can exist, which is the state you and I are in now. Born for the Khanate, and Dara's essence is inextinguishable, so it's called the Khanate inextinguishable spiritual light. There are many potential transactions between Dara here, but because everything doesn't exist, The transactions here are only the connate inextinguishable spiritual light or postnatal karma. In other words, it's either selling one's body or selling one's body. One is selling one's present body, and the other is selling one's future body. That Taoist just now probably has an unstable origin, so the probability of him attaining Tao is too small. Although Dara proves eternal, Dara also reverses karma, so there's still the worry of it regressing. Therefore, he sold himself to a mighty figure, turning into a connate numinous treasure in exchange for protection. Isn't the connate inextinguishable spiritual light? Heavenly Lord Yuanyu was a little terrified. The youth nodded and said, "You're right. The treasures formed by the connate inextinguishable spiritual light are Dara's true body. Dara passes through all spacetime, so every time before Pangu opens the sky, all the Dara in the downstream spacetime will gather here. Although the future is not fixed, Dara has no karma or calamity, so any Dara that has a chance of being born will come here, using karma as karma to become a primal chaos godfiend." The youth smiled and said, "Therefore, congratulations, Taoist, for becoming one of us primal chaos godfiends. So, this is the origin of primal chaos godfiends." Heavenly Lord Yuanyu felt that he had to slow down when he heard such a shocking piece of news. "What else?" The youth smiled and said, "Taoist Yuanyu, do you still think that the primal chaos can naturally give birth to some godfiends that surpass the future? Then why are we still cultivating? Could it be that so many Taoists have cultivated so hard for nothing? It would be better for the primal chaos to give birth to a few living beings. Primal chaos godfiends are born prenatally, and they are gods with noble roots and remarkable abilities. Actually, it's because Tai evolved the absolute beginning. When something was born out of nothing, the existence was born. We, Dara, cross time and space to come here, using karma as the cause and creating our root. Now, Taoist Yuanyu is also a primal chaos godfiend. How do you know that I'm Yuanyu?" Heavenly Lord Yuanyu was shocked at first, then he looked down at the downstream spacetime. He only saw that the downstream was covered by clouds and mist. Even though Dara was standing above spacetime, he couldn't see clearly. However, he could still see some things. Those things that were covered were naturally the other Daras doing to hide them. When Yuanyu first came to the Tai era, he was just a rookie that had just vindicated his Tao. Naturally, he couldn't see through the tricks of the veteran Dara. However, he understood that Dara was omniscient. Therefore, as long as it wasn't something that Dara was deliberately covering up, he could see through everything with one glance. That youth was obviously not weak among the Daras. Therefore, he could see his origin, but Yuanyu couldn't see his roots. Yuanyu could only ask politely, "I still don't know your honorific name." The youth nodded and smiled. Sure. I'm River Styx, and I'm also new here. I only know a little more than Taoist Yuanyu, so I came to show off. I've embarrassed myself in front of Taoist Yuanyu." Chapter 12:22. River Styx. When Heavenly Venerable Yuanyu heard this name, his body couldn't help trembling. He thought to himself, "Is this the River Styx that I'm thinking of? River Styx of the Blood Sea, the mighty being who founded the great Azura Devil Path in the future. Before Pangu created the world, the waters were indeed deep. Such mighty beings could actually be found everywhere? After Dara, it's like a whole new world." This thought flashed past Heavenly Venerable Yuanyu's mind, and he hurriedly returned the greeting. "It's actually Cult Master River Styx. This lowly Taoist has just arrived and doesn't know the rules. May Cult Master be generous with your guidance." After all, he was also a venerable of Dara, and he had a profound ability to maintain his composure. Even if he suddenly met those legendary almighties, Heavenly Venerable Yuanyu only needed to adjust himself a little before he got used to them. River Styx was very kind and seemed to be willing to help others. He immediately explained, "Fellow Taoist, do you know the Grand Cosmos 5 manifestations? The pre-world referred to the time before Pangu created the world. The 5 Tais referred to Tai Yi, Tai Chu, Tai Shi, Tai Su, and Tai Ji, the 5 pre-world creations, and the state of the creation of the universe was the Tai Ji, which was the transition from Tai Ji to the 5 stages before the creation of the world. Infinity was chaos. It was also the ultimate concept of Tao. Boundless, limitless, and without end. This formless, primitive state of the universe was also known as the chaos. Of course, there was no chaos chi in the chaos, nor was it a space filled with chaos chi. In fact, there was no space here. Infinity was a state without a center or boundary. There were no chaos fiend gods or primordial spiritual treasures, they were all transformed from the future Dara. Even Pangu was not born in the chaos. Pangu was created by fighting, not by being born. The primal chaos was Wuji, and the process of the primal chaos opening up was Wuji giving birth to Taiji. There were 5 stages in the Wuji begets Tai Chi. The first stage was the Tai era, which was the most ancient era that Dara had traced back to. The starting point of time. Yin and Yang had not changed, the vast emptiness, there was no light, no form, no name. Lonely and desolate, it is called Tai. Tai was the beginning of the gods, but the Chi was never seen. Tai was the beginning of everything. There was nothing, an absolute state of nothingness. At the end of the Tai era, God appeared. It was the origin of all things in the universe, the supreme and purest inextinguishable spirit light. In other words, the grand heavenly immortal realm had only been able to take advantage of the gap between the grand change epoch and the grand commencement epoch, creating something out of nothing in the instant when vital chi was born. This was the period of time when Yuan Yu arrived, the origin of all Dara's footsteps. Strictly speaking, this time of creation belonged to the time when the Tai Chu era and the Tai Yi era intersected. That was why it was said that there was a Tao in the Tai Chu era, and the Tao and the God existed together. After Tai Yi was Tai Chu. It was formless and without substance. There was only the state of one Qi. There was Qi, but there was no form. This was what was commonly understood as chaos. After the Grand Beginning era was the Grand Prime. Form without substance, not visible to the senses. Yin and Yang intersect, mixing into one, giving birth to form from one. Although it has form, it does not have substance. This is called Taisha. At this time, the state of the universe was similar to what the future generations understood as chaos. The chaotic energy of Yin and Yang filled the world. The primordial numinous treasures and gods and demons of chaos, both of which were Dara's avatars, breathed in and out the chaotic energy. Everything was in the process of being born. Taisha turned into Taisu. Taisha changed and took form. It had form but had substance, but not a body. This was called Taisu. At this time, everything in the chaos took form. The gods and primordial numinous treasures gave birth to their true forms. The 3,000 gods and demons of chaos, all of Dara in the universe, were completely formed. Then, some extremely powerful Dara slaughtered all the gods and demons, proving Pangu's Tao, splitting heaven and earth, splitting Yin and Yang. Pangu splitting heaven and earth was the Tai Chu era. The Tai Chu era was the state of the birth of the universe. The first 4 states belonged to the Wuji era. In the Tai Chu era, the Wuji era opened up, the universe was born, Yin and Yang were divided, and the pure and turbid were separated. 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3, and 3 begets all things. Tai Yi, Tai Chu, Tai Shi were the process of Tao begetting 1. 1 was born in the Tai Chu era. After the Tai Chu era, in the Tai Chu era, 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3, and 3 begets all things. Then, Pangu's body perished and became the chaotic world. After River Styx's explanation, Heavenly Venerable Yuanyu had a rough understanding of the chaos Wuji he was in. Dara, or rather, the gods and demons of chaos, opened up this gathering point at the turn of Tai Yi and Tai Chu eras, allowing everyone to communicate with each other. Most importantly was to make deals. Since fellow Taoist knows that we are gods and demons of chaos, you should have some guesses about the upcoming tribulations. River Styx said with a smile. Of course, Dara has no tribulations. The so-called tribulations are the tribulations of this world, the tribulations of our external appearances, and the tribulations of the gods and demons in the eyes of all living beings. However, we are not gods and demons of chaos, so there are no tribulations. It's just that Pangu wants to split heaven and earth and needs to borrow us. Heavenly Venerable Yuanyu said with a bitter smile, the tribulations of 3,000 gods and demons of chaos are naturally predestined. There is no predestined, we are predestined. It's just that, after attaining Dara, we expanded ourselves to the most ancient point of time. Dara is the most ancient one. In the future, some people thought that they saw the secret of Dara and thought that only the gods and demons born in the chaos could attest to Dara. Hence, they took the wrong path and tried to get closer to the gods and demons of chaos, trying to turn themselves into gods and demons of chaos. Of course, this is also the path of Dara. I see that you are walking the path of the exterior of the Golden Hall. The exterior of the Golden Hall is divided into 9 heavens, 12 heavens, 24 heavens, 33 heavens, and 36 heavens. However, in the end, they all placed their Tao fruit in Dara, which is also known as the anaphasic heaven of the Buddhist sects, and achieved Dara. Similarly, there are people who visualize the true bodies of gods and demons and cultivate themselves into gods and demons. They walk the primordial great path of gods and demons and arrive here at the moment of attaining Tao, becoming gods and demons of chaos to attest to Tao. All these methods of attaining Tao are Dara, and there is no difference between them. There are actually different paths to attaining Dara? Heavenly Venerable Yuanyu asked in a slightly ignorant manner. He already knew that the myriad realm he was born in was only a small realm of the chaotic universe. He had also used up the fate of the entire myriad realm to attest to Dara. In this process, Heavenly Venerable Yuanyu did not know how many worlds he had traversed. Just the vertical aspects of the river of time and space were more than 120,000. Including the horizontal aspects of the river of time and space, the number of additional aspects of the past and future was exactly 1 yuan. In this endless universe, those who could be called a fellow Taoist and had the qualifications to attain Dara could only be counted on one hand. Although there were also people who had attained enlightenment on other paths to Dara, they had died and their Tao had been destroyed before they could even set foot on the doorstep. In the end, Heavenly Venerable Dara had only emerged after Yuan Yu and a few other fellow Taoists had advanced wave after wave. The difficulty of this was incalculable. All of the 3,000 great paths can attest to Tao, River Styx said calmly. It's just that there are difficulties and there are difficulties. After attaining Tao, there is no difference between them. The end of the Tao is Dara. In this universe, Dara is already the end. Don't look at Buddha Daozu, Primordial Torch Dragon, and the others. Their statuses are billions of times higher than yours, but they are still Dara. Just like in the primordial chaos, the weakest chaos godfiend and Pangu's power are worlds apart, but in terms of Tao, they are all the same. Why do you say that Dara, who cultivated the primordial godfiend Tao, took a detour? River Styx sighed. That's because the difficulty of attaining Tao is 1,000,000 times higher than yours. Attaining Dara and then becoming a chaos godfiend, and attaining Dara after attaining Tao is reversed. It's like adding 3 floors to the threshold. The chaos godfiend is a temporary product before Khanate. Just like the Khanate 5 manifestations, it's a transitional state where Wuji gives birth to Tai Chi. When Tai Chi gives birth to Yin and Yang give birth to the 4 divisions, and 3 give birth to all things. The Chaos Godfiend can only be born from the Khanate 5 manifestations. As time goes on, the era gets further away from the creation of the world, and the difficulty increases rapidly. The only Taoist who succeeded received the legacy of a chaos godfiend, our Taoist Dara, at the beginning of the primordial world. He was like the son of a chaos godfiend. With the two connate spiritual treasures transformed from Dara, he first cultivated the godfiend body to its peak, then used the treasures to attune with the connate spiritual treasures to temporarily return to the primordial era. Only then did he succeed in attaining Tao as a chaos godfiend. Hey! It's just ahead. River Styx waved his hand and waved at the connate inextinguishable spirit light in front of him, which sometimes transformed into a black-robed Taoist, sometimes into a 10,000-mile-long koan, and sometimes into a gigantic Pung. Patriarch Koan Pung. When Patriarch Koan Pung saw River Styx, his expression changed, and he scolded, "River Styx, it's you again, you troublemaker. Don't go. Patriarch Koan Pung. Come to the devil path and establish a sect. Our devil path lacks a talent like you. If you come to my sect, I'll give you all the demons and make you the deputy cult master. Your position won't be lower than mine. Don't go. Patriarch Koan Pung." River Styx shouted at the back of Koan Pung, who couldn't dodge in time. Patriarch Koan Pung ran fast, and he disappeared in a flash of spirit light. River Styx could only shake his head and sigh, feeling too far behind to catch up. River Styx turned back and called out to Heavenly Venerable Yuanyu. "That's right, Taoist Yuanyu, are you willing to establish a sect in the devil path?" He saw that Heavenly Venerable Yuanyu had already stopped nervously on the road, looking at River Styx with a face full of fear. River Styx persuaded sincerely, "Taoist Yuanyu, don't be nervous. I, River Styx, never force people to join. Taoist Koan Pung is just annoyed by my pestering. To tell you the truth, I, River Styx, am a daffodil, and I've comprehended the water essence great Tao of the three essences of heaven, earth, and water. I was originally a pillar of the immortal path, and I thought that after I could prove my Tao Dara, I could be called a patriarch. Unfortunately, the previous stinky sh*T Taoist Ro has gone offline. The three pure ones invited me to be the cult master of the devil path. I say you guys should find someone better. I'm a primordial daffodil who cultivates the water essence great Tao, and I'm preparing to open up the heavenly river diagram great Tao of River Styx and establish the orthodox mystic door of the primordial world's water cycle. How did I become the cult master of the devil path? The Grand Elder told me that everyone has already decided. This sh*T will be placed on your head. You're a newcomer who has just come to the primordial world and has yet to make any contributions. We can't always catch Ro. Our conscience will hurt. The Buddhist sect of the mystic door will always need someone to be the antagonist. Without pressure and stimulation, without a mechanism to eliminate our disciples and disciples, the primordial world will not be good. You should develop your style and become the cult master of the devil path. River Styx looked up at the sky and sighed. I don't believe him. From now on, all the pleasures of the primordial world will be under my control. Actually, the devil path still has a lot of potential. Taoist Yuanyu, come here and be a deputy cult master. You can choose one from Blood Demon, Bone Demon, Death Demon, or Een Demon. Your future is very bright. Sometimes you have to act as a special actor for the Buddha and the three pure ones. Dara has thousands of clones. It won't affect your other identities. Many fellow Taoists will come to me to get a sock puppet when they are working and playing the main role. Sometimes they can even act with themselves to set off the elegance and greatness of their main identity. They can act as a good person and a bad person at the same time. The effect is really very good. Look, the Buddhist sect invited me to be the son of freedom, and the primordial beginning also invited me to be the primordial heavenly demon to act with him. I'm now leading the great Azura demon sect, the great freedom heavenly demon, and many other temporary positions in the heavenly court of the Buddhist sect of the mystic door. I'm doing very well. Taoist Yuanyu, are you really not going to consider it? River Styx looked at the heavenly venerable Yuanyu expectantly. The heavenly venerable Yuanyu shook his head like a rattle drum, as if he was going to escape immediately. River Styx said with a bitter face, I originally wanted to manage the water cycle of the primordial world and get a 3 eons karmic position. However, the 3 pure ones insisted that the 3 rivers of the heaven, earth, and netherworld are fated with the blood sea. The blood sea has 1/3 of the Devil Tao's providence, and they want me to be the Devil Tao sect master. Taoist Ro has been the Devil Tao sect master for a few Panga eras and was bullied by them. She was so angry that she didn't want to be one anymore. At that time, I didn't know what was going on and was tricked into joining the pirate ship. From then on, I had to fight all the sect masters and almighties of the primordial world alone. The heavenly venerable Yuanyu was about to cry. No wonder this person was so enthusiastic. He was looking for someone to be his scapegoat all over the world. He was a newcomer and had no relatives or friends in the Tai era. He was almost tricked into joining the pirate ship. A heavenly venerable of the mystic door almost became an overlord of the Devil Tao, an extremely evil person. Who could he tell about his grievances? River Styx left in disgust. The heavenly venerable Yuanyu thought that he had escaped and quickly slipped away. Although the Tai era didn't have time and space, it was vast and boundless. The heavenly venerable Yuanyu escaped for a long time before he felt that he had escaped from the shadow of River Styx. Coincidentally, a ray of spiritual light came towards him. The heavenly venerable Yuanyu hurriedly said, Taoist, please wait. Unexpectedly, when the spiritual light heard this, it didn't stop. Instead, it sped up, looking anxious. The heavenly venerable Yuanyu shouted, Don't go, there's River Styx in front. The spiritual light immediately stopped and turned back. The heavenly venerable Yuanyu went forward to take a look. He saw that the person had a dark face and a thick beard. He wasn't dressed in Taoist attire and was wearing a military uniform, which was a little different. The heavenly venerable Yuanyu recognized this person. He suddenly came to a realization. So it's Marshal Xian-Tan. Marshal Xian-Tan's full name was Golden Dragon Rui Dragon Tiger Xian-Tan True Sovereign. He was the famous immortal of the Jie sect, Zhao Gongming. Although he had suffered from the calamity of the investiture of the gods, there would be a time when he would be free in the future. Now that he had proven his Tao to Dara, he wasn't an anomaly. It was no wonder that the heavenly venerable Yuanyu's call for him to wait had the opposite effect. Zhao Gongming smiled brightly. So it's a new Taoist. I thought it was Shun Gongbao, that guy, who had proven his Tao to Dara. Could it be that Taoist is lying to me? Is there really a guy called River Styx in front? The heavenly venerable Yuanyu also didn't expect the name of River Styx to be so useful. He went forward and asked, I also just escaped from Cult Master River Styx. How would I be willing to see you enter the Sea of Fire again? However, what is so terrifying about that River Styx that you are so afraid of him? Zhao Gongming smiled bitterly. He wants me to go to his place to be the chief manager of a devil of wealth. How would I dare to go with his greed? Yet this guy is a great divine arts practitioner, an almighty in Dara. He is also in charge of the devil path. If I offend him, I'm afraid there will be endless trouble in the future. The heavenly venerable Yuanyu was stunned. What trouble? Dara doesn't have a tribulation. Dara doesn't have a tribulation, but my background is known to the whole world. Zhao Gongming said with a vexed expression, You are new here, so you don't know how important Dara's background is. My background is the past when Dara has proven his Tao, just like the time when Taoist cultivated in the past. Dara can reverse karma, and there are no disasters or tribulations. However, Dara's only opponent is the other Dara. If the other Dara goes back to the time when you haven't proven your Tao and kills you, the heavenly venerable Yuanyu frowned and said, Dara proves his Tao forever. Once he proves his Tao, he will cover the past and future. How can he be killed? Dara won't lose his position, but he will lose me. Zhao Gongming explained. Why do you think Dara's connate inextinguishable spirit light turned into a connate numinous treasure? Half of it is voluntary. The ancient Dara is impatient with the reincarnation of the Pangu era, so he took the initiative to sleep and become a numinous treasure. Or he can use the identity of a numinous treasure to find a Tao companion and survive the prehistoric calamity, waiting for the right time to reincarnate. And the other half is that Dara has no choice but to lose me. Although we, Dara, cover the past and future, Dara's true self is formed before he proves his Tao. Once he is found by others, he will be killed in the process of growing. With Dara's ability, he will lock down all opportunities to shift his roots and change his route. Then, Dara's origin will return to this place, and Dara will lose its past. Without the past, we will become true chaos godfiends. This place will become our origin. Fellow Taoist, can you imagine where yourself will be after your past no longer exists? Once you only have the origin of the chaos godfiend, you will gradually lose yourself and only have the nature of the godfiend left. Although there is still a bit of connate spiritual light that is not extinguished, Dara will forever be proven, but he will be ignorant, heartless, and heartless. In the end, he will completely lose himself and turn into a connate numinous treasure. Either he will become a Dharma treasure in the hands of the enemy, or he will find a fated Tao companion and prepare to reincarnate as a human in the future and find himself. Zhao Gongming smiled bitterly and said, Fellow Taoist, do you now know why there are so many connate numinous treasures in the primordial world? They are all Dara. The disciples of the three sects have the support of the three teachers. We have never hidden our origins, and we can't hide it. The three teachers have set the general trend. How can we hide it? Fortunately, no one dares to wear us down. If Dara wants to go back and interfere with the God conferment battle, do you really think that the three teachers are clay puppets? The primordial world can be changed, but the general trend cannot be changed. We can do whatever we want, but the general trend of history can only be decided by the powerful mystical abilities and mighty figures. The history of the primordial world has long reached a balance among the mighty figures. No matter how many variables you have, you can't violate the general trend. However, Sect Master River Styx told me that Dara is the end of the Tao. There is no other way. The heavenly venerable UNU cursed River Styx for spouting nonsense and asked, How many Dara are there in the primordial world now? Since you are not afraid of others erasing your origins, why are you so afraid of Sect Master River Styx? Dara is indeed the end of the Tao. The primordial world is formed by Dara. There is no higher Tao fruit. Zhao Gongming explained, the three teachers are Dara, the Buddha is also Dara, the goddess Nuwa, sacred ancestor Fuxi, and the great venerable torch dragon are all Dara. However, can their Dara be the same as our Dara? There are a few great mystical abilities in the primordial world. Zhao Gongming smiled bitterly and said, River Styx is a great mystical abilities. That's why I'm afraid of him. Even though I have teacher's protection, if Patriarch River Styx wants to harm me, how many times can teacher save me? The primordial world has reincarnated a few times, and Pangu has changed a few times. Many mighty figures have long stopped appearing. They only gave the karma incarnations to the younger generation. How would I know how many mighty figures are hiding? Fellow Taoist, you just have to remember that you can't offend anyone who claims to be an ancestor. Of course, they have to be an ancestor in Dara. When he arrived at Dara, the Taoists would address him as the Heavenly Lord, while the Buddhists would address him as the Enlightened One. There were Empyrean Venerables and Great Heavenly Venerables, such as Great Heavenly Venerate Primordial Beginning and Great Heavenly Venerate Numinous Treasure. It's either the Sacred Mother, the Sacred Ancestor, or the Sect Master. Patriarch River Styx is the Patriarch. Only then did Heavenly Venerable Yuanyu come to a realization. No wonder I heard him call Patriarch Kuan-pung. That's still a venerable ancestor. Zhao Gongming said dejectedly. The primordial world has already reincarnated many times. Every time Pangu created the heavens, at the end of the Tai era, Dara would transform into a chaotic godfiend. The strongest person in Dara would absorb all of Dara's Tao fruits, transform into Pangu, kill and devour all the chaotic godfiends, and create the heavens and earth. Then, the heavens and earth would become more complete. Coupled with the continuous creation of Dara, the possibility of more Dara being born in the future would increase. Hence, there would be more chaotic godfiends at the end of the Tai era. In the end, there would be more and more Dara in the primordial world, until there were 3,000 great Daos and 3,000 chaotic godfiends. The primordial world is Dara's game. Zhao Gongming sighed, but he did not say this out loud. The primordial world was a game. Dara was the player, and the patriarch was the rich player in Dara who paid for it. The ordinary Dara was used to satisfy the rich player. They wanted to have fun without paying? River Styx stopped another newbie. Don't call me patriarch, it sounds old. Look at my Tao body, I'm still a young man. After the endless trials, I'll still be a young man. Young man, are you interested in becoming the patriarch of the devil sect? It'll feel great. The newbie pointed at himself and said, Patriarch, don't you recognize me? I'm Duobao. Get lost. Oh! The newbie Duobao walked past quietly. River Styx said angrily, You're already old bark. Why are you pretending to be pure? Chapter 12:23. Although he had escaped from the clutches of River Styx, Heavenly Venerable Yuanyu was still a little uneasy. He had just arrived in this epoch of time and did not know many rules. Coincidentally, he met Marshal Zhao Gongming. Both of them were from the mystic door and worshipped the three pure ones, Daozu. Thus, he simply pointed out the direction of River Styx to Zhao Gongming. The two of them walked in opposite directions. With a leap of divine light, they were far away from River Styx. Only then did he feel at ease and ask Zhao Gongming for guidance. Big brother Gongming, I attained Tao long before the primordial era. The deeds of the primordial era in the past are already myths and legends. I was born in a small kiliacosm after the primordial era was broken, so I don't know many secrets of the primordial era. I hope that you can give me some pointers. Heavenly Venerable Yuanyu bowed to Zhao Gongming. Zhao Gongming originally had the intention to help the disciples of the Mystic Door. It was not easy for Dara to attain Tao after the primordial era was broken. Since they were both disciples of the Tao sect, he naturally had to take care of them. Thus, he gave him some pointers and said, Let's not talk about other things first. In this Tai era, we Dara are free and unfettered. There are only three things that we need to be wary of. First is the disaster of River Styx. Ancestor River Styx is the destined master of the demon Daozu. Now, he is going around swindling people and tempting them to join the devil. We disciples of the Mystic Door are protected by the three pure ones, Daozu. We have always been free and unfettered. However, River Styx has a strange background. I don't know his background either. He was originally a Dara water fairy. He wanted to establish the three primordial water channel and use it to establish his foundation. However, the demon ancestor Ro, the ancestor of the devil path in the previous epoch of time, could not stand the trend of the devil path. Thus, he abandoned the karma of the devil path in this epoch of time. It just so happens that Mingi is a person who has a lot of fate with the diabolism. Therefore, the three teachers and the Gautama Buddha invited him to take the position of the demonic ancestor. He couldn't refuse, so he agreed. He only asked the three teachers to promise him one thing, which was to allow him to invite the disciples of the three religions. The Buddhists were to join the diabolism and not to stop him from joining the Daoyuo. The three teachers had no choice but to agree. Thus, there was the first disaster, the invitation of River Styx. Anyone who is tricked by him, either by cutting off a wisp of spiritual light, or by letting him cheat you of a bit of fate, when the primordial world is established in the future, it will be difficult for you to join the devil path. We, Dara, often travel the world with incarnations. It is inevitable that there will be 1 or 2 incarnations created by him using a bit of spiritual light that he cut off or demoned, which will be involved with you and me. If it involves a lot of people, the karma will be deep. It is inevitable that you will join the devil path. When the time comes, you will be forced to face a few fellow Taoists of Dara at the same time. You might even be used by the great divine arts to beat up your disciples. That will be extremely uncomfortable. Heavenly Venerable Yuanyu was a little dumbfounded when he heard this. What do you mean by stealing spiritual light? Could it be that even if I don't agree to him, there will still be trouble involved? Zhao Gongming understood and looked at Yuanyu with sympathy. He said in a low voice, "During the Tai era, our true bodies were the connate inextinguishable spiritual light. Venerated ancestors like Patriarch River Styx have a way to cut off a bit of spiritual light from our bodies. When the primordial world is established in the future, he will use the art of creation to send it for reincarnation. It will be a wisp of our incarnation and will be involved with us by karma. When the time comes, he can still use it to guide us into the devil path. The scariest thing is that the great divine arts will reverse karma and turn that incarnation into our true origin. When that time comes, the past of Dara will become the past of the devil path incarnation. Brother, you will naturally fall into his trap. From then on, you will take the blame for him and bear the karma of being the orthodox Tao enemies of the mystic door. You will definitely be dismembered and suppressed or forced to do evil. Brother, but Heavenly Venerable Yuanyu's face was full of despair. It is not the first time that I have pulled him. Not to mention a wisp of spiritual light, even 8 to 10 wisps of it would have been torn off. I was wondering why he let me off so easily. Turns out that he still has tricks up his sleeve." Zhao Gongming pinched his fingers and calculated, then said sympathetically, "Brother, you will probably have a lot of trouble in the future. This is Dara's first disaster, River Styx's request, the disaster of the devil affinity. As long as you stay true to your heart, cut off the karma with the devil path incarnation in time, and don't go out during that period of time, there is still hope for you to escape. Otherwise, once River Styx takes the opportunity to stir up the karma of your incarnation, brother, you really won't be able to clear your name." Heavenly Venerable Yuanyu finally understood why Kuan Peng called River Styx a **tea-stirring stick. Zhao Gongming could not avoid it in time and hurriedly took out a small notebook to note it down. He continued to ask, "What are the remaining 2 disasters? I heard from Patriarch River Styx that we are the chaotic godfiends. In the future, there will be a huge disaster in the primal chaos that will affect the creation of the great god Pangu?" "That's right," Zhao Gongming explained. "Dara was known as the most ancient being. Even post-celestial lifeforms and those who attained Tao during the Dharma End period would spread their existence to the origin of the timeline, which was the end of the Tai era. Dara had the disaster of losing itself, so its origin was the most important. Many Dara thought of ways to cover up their history of attaining Tao. There was no better way to cover up history than to find a foothold for oneself. Therefore, the Dara incarnations as the chaotic godfiends reversed karma, making their origins in the history of the future become the legacy of the chaotic godfiends. All of them were descendants of the chaotic godfiends. Just like that, they were of noble birth, and they could also use this to set up various incarnations. One lineage would be passed down, with thousands of incarnations that were fake and real, real and fake, making it hard for others to guess their origins. Therefore, the origins of the chaotic godfiends also needed to be fought by the Dara. If they fought well, they would be of noble birth, accompanied by all kinds of great luck, and have a smooth sailing life. They would be the best main account in the game. If they did not, they might become third-rate godfiends with bad luck and all kinds of wrong points. Main accounts with bad attributes would lose their origins. Therefore, to the Dara there were thousands of changes in identity, ups and downs. Sometimes they were the righteous gods of heaven and earth, and sometimes they turned into mortals, wearing scales and horns. It was just a momentary rise and fall. It was just a game for the Dara. In other words, they had all kinds of alternate accounts for fun. If they were in a good mood, they could join a guild, a large sect in the heavenly court, and participate in a faction war, the battle for luck. If they were in a bad mood or did not want to get involved in a conflict, they could be a fan of scenery, appearance, or even a squirrel. They could practice their life professions and be a casual player, experiencing the world of mortals and training their Tao heart. They could also be a free and unfettered itinerant immortal, or enter the world to enjoy the riches of humanity. Only two kinds of identities were worthy of Dara's attention. That was the origin. This origin was the origin of proving the Tao. Cultivating and proving the Tao, Dara's history was based on one's own identity. That was the key to Dara's self-formation, and also the origin of Dara's self-identity. If this history was cut off, Dara's self-identity would be shaken. It had to find a way to form a new origin based on itself and shape the past of proving the Tao. If it was deliberately targeted by others and the possibility of proving the Tao was locked, then the origin of Dara would become the chaotic godfiend, and there would be a calamity of losing one's self. The second was the identity of the chaotic godfiend. That was the origin of Dara in the timeline, and the starting point of everything for Dara. There were high and low levels of these origins. The high level was the strongest among the chaotic godfiends, and their legacy would benefit the chaotic world. Whether it was planning, cultivating forces, or expanding influence, they would benefit endlessly. The low level was the third-rate godfiend, and their legends might not even be passed down to future generations. The chaotic godfiend was equivalent to Dara's main account. The attributes and points added, aptitude and luck, were related to the development in the future, and even the creation of a secondary account. It was very crucial, so it was also known as the innate origin. Generally speaking, the superiority of the chaotic godfiend body depended on Dara's own ability. Although Dara was the end of the Tao, and there was no more path ahead. However, Dara was also a player, which meant that he could truly participate in the primordial world game. It actually had little to do with strength. Of course, if one was not Dara, one would not be qualified to stand opposite Dara. It was just like in a game, if one did not have the identity of a player, it was impossible to become the player's enemy. Just loading the file could kill a group of NPCs. Therefore, there were also differences between Dara. According to their own Tao fruits, they would become chaotic godfiends, and their aptitude and luck would differ greatly. Generally speaking, it was only related to their own Tao fruits, and there was no need to compete. What they really wanted to compete for was the karma of the chaotic godfiend's descendants. The chaotic godfiend Tao created the heaven and earth, leaving behind countless blessings. Naturally, there was karma with the primordial world. There were only so many places to create the universe in the primordial world, but there was more than one. For example, they were all experts who were proficient in the water Tao. River Styx wanted to create the three rivers of the heaven, earth, and water Tao to complete the primordial world's water Tao karma rank. However, there were also people who wanted to create the four seas and use the four seas to determine the water Tao. At this time, everyone had to compete for the karma of the primordial water Tao. Zhao Gongming said solemnly, "Among the chaotic godfiends, there is only one who has the noblest background and the best background." Pangu! Lord Yuan gasped. "That's why we have to compete for Pangu. Pangu is the orthodox Tao of heaven and earth." Zhao Gongming said firmly, "The karma of the other chaotic godfiends is small. The real karma is collected by Pangu. Pangu's body transformed into the world, and everything in the primordial world has karma with him. Pangu is the primordial world, and the orthodox Tao is everything. Ever since the karma created by the primordial world was absorbed by Pangu, there was nothing for the chaotic godfiends to compete for. Everyone will rely on their own abilities to prove their godfiend true bodies. The real battle is about who can be Pangu. Those who can be Pangu are all great mediums. Zhulong was Pangu, Emperor Hua and Emperor Shi were Pangu, Huangtian Hutu was Pangu, Tai was Pangu, and Haotian was Pangu. After the three teachers joined forces and created the mystic door, the Pangu clan no longer produced the three pure ones. However, in these two Pangu eras, God Hutu joined forces with some primordial gods to fight for the position of Pangu. Heavenly Lord Yuanyu's eyes flashed, and he thought to himself, Pangu created the world and transformed into the three pure ones. So it wasn't Pangu who transformed into the three pure ones, but the three pure ones who killed all the chaotic godfiends and became Pangu. However, there are legends of Pangu's corporeal body transforming into the 12 witches, so who won this time? Heavenly Lord Yuanyu frowned and suddenly said, however, there are legends in the future that Pangu is the heavenly king primordial beginning. At this moment, Zhao Gongming hurriedly turned his head and looked around. He pulled Heavenly Lord Yuanyu back and said sternly, "You can't say this recklessly. If you say it recklessly, something big will happen." After saying that, they looked at each other and understood what the other was thinking. The Heavenly Lord Yuanyu shuddered and dispelled this terrifying thought. However, a shadow was left in their hearts. Could it be that the great Heavenly Lord Yuanyu doesn't want to be the three pure ones? Does he want to be Pangu alone? This thought was truly rebellious. How could the two disciples of the mystic door dare to think about it? Fellow Taoist Yuanyu, do you want to be Pangu yourself? River Styx joked with the three pure ones in front of him. The three of you have occupied the position of Pangu for too long. Any one of you alone has the potential to be Pangu. Now that the three of you are connected and have the fate of one, do you still want the others to live? Fellow Taoist Sakyamuni is also a great medium, but he hasn't even proven Pangu once. Now that the people in Dara are stirred up, fellow Taoist Yuanyu, why don't you come out and prove Pangu yourself? You can also experience my Yuan-tu Avicii. River Styx said sinisterly, why can't Pangu be the ancestor of the devil path? I think demon venerable Pangu is also very good. Great Heavenly Lord Yuanyu snorted coldly. Do you still remember me, Chen Daoyu? River Styx raised his head and glanced at him, then turned his head and said, What Chen Daoyu? I, River Styx, don't know him, but who doesn't know great Heavenly Lord Yuanyu? What's the meaning of saying this? Yuanyu slammed the long table in front of him. Chen Wuliang, why are you pretending to be innocent? We haven't cleared up the matter about the monkey. Immeasurable Heavenly Lord, what does Cult Master Chen's matter have to do with me, River Styx? River Styx said calmly, when I, River Styx, was in the spiritual immortal realm, I did have some fate with fellow Taoist Tai Ching. However, the orthodoxy of Mount Shu is under the Tai Ching sect. What does it have to do with you, the Jade Pure sect? Don't taint my innocence for no reason. Taint my innocence. What innocence do you, Chenong, have to speak of? I told you not to be unreasonable. Cult Master Chen is Cult Master Chen, River Styx is River Styx. What does the Jade Emperor have to do with you, Yuanyu? Now you remember that I'm the Jade Emperor. All right. Do you think I, River Styx, am afraid of you? At most, we'll fight. You, the three pure ones, can touch Pangu, but I, River Styx, can't? Let me tell you, fellow Taoist Ro has been dissatisfied for a long time. At most, I'll form a Ro and Kata group with him. I won't be River Styx anymore. I'll change my name to Ketu and fight with you, the three pure ones, for the orthodoxy of Taoism and fiendish Tao. I'll be the demon Lord Pangu for once. Fellow Taoist River Styx. Grand Elder cupped his hands and said, Fellow Taoist River Styx, why do you have to say such things out of anger? River Styx sneered angrily. The three pristine ones have long been dissatisfied with the occupation of Pangu by the great mediums. Otherwise, why would Goddess Huda's suggestion be followed by so many people? Now there are 12 great mediums, including Hudu and the Candle Dragon, who have proven Pangu. The Earth Emperor has transformed into Hutu, the Candle Dragon has transformed into the Candle Dragon, the ancient gods of the 4 seasons and 5 elements, Gomang, Zhurong, Rushu, Gonggong, Xianming, Hutu, the Yellow Emperor has transformed into Dijiangxi, and Swerin has transformed into Kezi. Only Tianwu and the Shebi corpse are a bit of a stretch. After all, they are not ancestors, they are just there to make up the numbers. Sakyamuni failed to prove Pangu's Tao. Even if he established the 3 worlds rule and united some great mediums, he still couldn't achieve his wish. It was because he was not popular enough. After all, his Buddhism is too xenophobic. Many Taoist friends don't want to see them prove their Tao. As for the 3 pristine ones, they know how to conduct themselves better. The mystic door can accommodate the mythical history of many powerful people. The orthodoxy also respects the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, the god ancestors of all kinds, and the Emperor Heaven. Unlike the Buddhism, which has its own school and does not tolerate others, its mythology does not integrate the Eastern Orthodoxy and does not enter the mainstream of the human race. However, the current fellow Taoist Hutu's 12 ancestors of sorcery does not have this weakness. The 12 ancestors of sorcery are all ancient gods with deep foundations. The sorcery sect is also the orthodoxy of the primordial world and the great sect of the human race. It is in line with the will of heaven and the people. Unlike the devil sect established by Ro and me, which is not welcomed and supported by the orthodoxy of the primordial world, they are members of the orthodoxy of the primordial world. They are not like the devil sect established by Ro and I, which is not welcomed and supported by the orthodoxy of the primordial world. They are members of the orthodoxy of the primordial world. When the time comes, we will see what we can do. Fellow Taoist primordial beginning will naturally get what you want. Anyway, when facing one person, the 3 pure ones will fight together. When facing all the people, the 3 pure ones will also fight together. This time there are 12 of us. The 3 pure ones can fight together. River Styx threatened. The primordial beginning immediately fell silent. The 3 pure ones exchanged glances. The Grand Supreme took the lead, coughed, and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist River Styx, why do you say such angry words? Fellow Taoist Gonggong's great Tao of water element is not compatible with Gonggong. The water Daozu has long been among the 12 ancestors of sorcery. If you go now, I'm afraid it will be difficult for you to find your position. Fellow Taoist Hutu is not willing to let you replace Gonggong. Why do you have to be so unhappy? The fight between you and the primordial beginning last time was just a moment of anger. Why do you take it to heart?" The Grand Supreme said kindly, "Moreover, fellow Taoist, you owe me a favor." River Styx was speechless. Last time, the immeasurable Heavenly Lord caused all sorts of trouble in the realm of great clarity, but the Grand Supreme did not hold it against him. Speaking of which, he owed the Elder Lord a favor. Seeing that River Styx owed a favor, the Grand Supreme went up to make a dirty deal. Fellow Taoist Hutu and Divine Mother Nuwa have a fight for orthodoxy. When the time comes for the creation of human beings, the 2 Divine Mothers will fight for the origin of the human race. Will you stand on fellow Taoist Huda's side? You offended Emperor Nuwa and Emperor Shi for no reason. Fellow Taoist River Styx, we are humans. Won't you choose the orthodoxy of the 3 sovereigns? Of course I support Emperor Nuwa's creation of human beings. River Styx sighed. And Gonggong does have a fight with me. Fellow Taoist Supreme, if you want to win my support, then let's make a deal. If the price you offer is enough, I, River Styx, will sell this bone to the 3 pure ones. The three pure ones were overjoyed. The primeval of beginning could not hold it in any more. He said tentatively, "How about I give you a Taoist sovereign?" River Styx was enraged. "Who are you trying to fool? The Taoist sovereign is not worth that price." The Grand Supreme did not manage to stop him in time. He could only salvage the situation. "Don't mention the Taoist sovereign. Fellow Taoist River Styx is a primordial sky devil, a master of demon Daozu. Even in the Taoist League, your status is no lower than ours. You can be said to be the master of demon Daozu. Don't mention this again. Fellow Taoist River Styx, I promise you the position of Pan-gu. When the time comes, the three pure ones will give you the origin of Pan-gu." "That's more like it." River Styx came back to his senses and said with a smile, "Usually, only those who have been Pan-gu will have the origin of Pan-gu retained by the next Pan-gu. This deal can be done. Pan-gu has 81 transformations. Tell me, which Pan-gu form are you willing to give me?" The primeval of beginning and the Grand Supreme looked at each other and said, "The three pure ones are the orthodox Pan-gu. Fellow Taoist River Styx can have the origin of Pan-gu. When the time comes, you will be the innate god formed by Pan-gu's blood. You will be in charge of the boundless blood sea. When the time comes, your chaos god and demon god will be a Pan-gu form. And Pan-gu's main arteries and veins, all the blood vessels in his body will become the water circulation, and the three rivers of heaven, earth, and hell." River Styx bargained. "The boundless blood sea is the foundation of my demonic path. The great Tao of water, the Milky Way river diagram, and River Styx are the foundation of my water path. The river diagram belongs to Emperor Shi. I support Emperor Wa's creation. Help me resist the trend of creation. Deal."